Thank you. I call this meeting of the Transportation Board of the Town of Brookline to order. It is 6:30 on the nose on the 24th of June, 2026. Can someone please call the roll to establish a quorum officially?
Again, Nancy,
Here.
Jonathan is not here at the moment. Richard,
Here.
Wendy,
Here.
Len,
Here.
and Brian.
Here, thank you very much, Dylan. We will begin, as we always do, with public comment for items that are not on the agenda. If you would like to comment on an item not on the agenda, please use the raise hand function, and I'd be delighted to hear from you. We'll get to the person on the phone first. However, just note that if the item you wish to comment on is on an agenda item, we will have a comment period on each of those. So, who was on the phone just now? We would be happy to
Hi.
hear from you. Go ahead, please.
Yes, it's Marilyn Tressel. I live on Summit Avenue, and I'm calling, as I have in the past, to request traffic calming on Summit Avenue, stop signs at Summit and Lancaster and Mason and Summit, or speed bumps. Traffic is just becoming a stream of cars coming up and down the street. A lot of kids, a lot of people walk there, and it's becoming extremely dangerous. So that is my request. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I see Kate, your hand is up. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Brian. Hi, folks. I'm Kate Nyan. I want to comment about the Blue Bike extension, the Blue Bike station and curb extension that's planned at 1012 Park Street. Sometimes it's been described as Griggs Road at Washington Street, which for obvious reasons is a little confusing. I learned about this very recently when construction started. I want to share that I don't like having to take the lane on my bike to ride past parked cars when I'm going southbound on Park Street. The drivers behind me get angry, especially in that last block where they can see the light at Washington Street is turning yellow, and they think that I'm making them late. Having a Blue Bike station on a curb extension in front of 10 Park Street will force cyclists into the so-called car lane, by which I mean the travel lane, right where the road goes uphill, and drivers get especially anxious about the traffic light. I hope that the committee will not put the station in that location. I think that the Sneck Downs where Weybridge Road bottoms out and Washington Street could be a great place instead. But if it's so crucial to have a Blue Bike station in front of 10 Park Street this summer, I hope that you will just put it down in the street rather than making a curb extension, because a curb extension is infrastructure that I fear would be very difficult to remove in the future, even if it turns out that concerns about bike safety and people turning into Parkvale and the alley between 4 and 10 Park Street turn out to be real concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to make a public comment for an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Thank you, everybody. Jonathan, I see you're here. Can you say hello for the recording? Thank you, Jonathan. He waved.
Hello.
For the record. Hello. Brenda, would you like to say something? I see your hand is up.
Yeah, hey, Brian, this is Jesse together with Brenda. How are you?
Well, go ahead, please, Dr. Hefter.
I'm a town meeting member for Precinct 14 and Brookline School Committee, speaking as a resident, though this evening, just for full disclosure. I sent a note to to you, Brian, and I think maybe others on the Transportation Board, Dan Murphy as well, about a proposal to consider modifying the no turn on reds in especially intersectional areas where there's no real traffic after school or even in the evening, and consider what other towns have done. I sent a picture to you of Teaneck, New Jersey, where there are no turn on reds, and then the intersections are no turn on red be Monday to Friday between 7:30 a.m. and 4 p.m., which is the time during when there's school moving and a lot of people out, and the young children in their vests being, walked down the streets by their caretakers. That all happens during the day. But keeping no turn on reds 24/7 encourages, I think, some bad behavior, because At 10 o'clock at night, when people want to make that right turn on red, say from Dean to Beacon, they're not going to see any traffic coming. There are no pedestrians and no bikers. And essentially, they may actually make the right turn on red. Anyway, it's not carefully enforced by the police as it is. And same thing in the morning at 5:30 in the morning. Very few bikers. You can look and see. Wave when the green light changes. And no traffic between Cleveland Circle and going down Beacon to Dean on any of the sides. No bike traffic that early as well, really. And again, it just encourages some bad behavior because people will just naturally make the turn. Anyway, so I think what Teaneck, New Jersey, and other towns have done is placed a time frame on the no turn on red, since we're doing it at almost all signalized intersections in Brookline, putting no turn on reds everywhere. I think it's worth a consideration by the Transportation Board to potentially put some time limits on it, to do it when it's smart during the day and maybe relax it at night. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to really close the public comment period now. We will move on, and Wendy has joined us. Thank you. We'll do item 3, which is our consent agenda. There's one item on the consent agenda, which is a discussion of the 17 June 2026 minutes, which was last week. Would any member like to discuss this item? If not, if there's a motion to approve the consent agenda, it will approve this item. Is there a motion to approve this item?
Move.
Thank you, Richard. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. Can someone call the roll, please?
Nancy,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Len,
Yes.
and Brian.
I'm a yes. Thank you very much, Dylan. We'll move on now to item 4, which is updates, member update. Would anybody like to give an update since last week when we did this before? Richard, go ahead, please, sir.
Yeah, Rob, Dan and I met with Hayes Principal Asa and with Brad Broder as far as the safety improvement. And we're going to be following up with Tina Hines as far as possible next steps regarding funding on areas that Mass DOT will support us on, and basically slowly move in that process of trying to get some safety improvements there. So that's where we're at right now. So
Thank you very much, Richard. We discussed last week the creation of a 4th advisory committee. Just want to let folks know that those discussions continue. I've spoken to a few of you, but not everyone, because I don't want to do circular discussions and violate any open meeting laws. So some folks are working on that and trying to figure out the best way to move that forward. Unlikely we'll make any appointments tonight, but we will probably take that up at a July meeting. So that work continues, and it will be discussed by the full board well in advance, including the charter, including potential appointments. So stay tuned for that. That is my appointment. I want to note that we are joined by Kevin Johnson. Kevin, thank you for being here. Kevin is the guy that makes it all happen. We appreciate your presence. Kevin, you want to say hi before we move on to the next item? He loves when I do this.
Yeah, I really love when you do this. Hi, Kevin Johnson, Deputy Commissioner of Operations. Glad to be here tonight to listen on.
Kevin, we're honored by your presence. Thank you, sir. Director's update. Who's that? Dan, is that you?
That's me tonight, yes.
Hey, hey. Hi, Dan. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I'll start with Hammond, just an update on that. That will be in the Central Register next week with a bid opening for July 15th. That's the traffic signal in Woodland and the road diet as discussed. So that's coming, and we're looking forward to it. As I mentioned last time, I gave the report that paving, some of the curbing work and some of the signal work, conduit, and all the islands and such will be started this year, but the paving won't come till next year. So just an update on that. That Safe Streets for All grant we were awarded. We're finally getting an initiation meeting next week scheduled for that. That includes some traffic signal upgrade designs and a pilot trial for a contraflow bike lane at a location to be determined. So we'll be meeting with the Safe Streets for All folks next week to get that thing rolling, and we'll have more to report once we get it going. Let's see, the 25, the other grant we got for the 25 crosswalks is nearly, I'm sorry, the RFBs, throughout Brookline, those
Brian Kane,
improvements.
hello?
Yep.
Sorry,
Can you hear me?
I thought I was muted.
No, that's okay. So 23 of the 25 rapid, rectangular flashing, beacons are installed. One more installation at, Marion and Harvard. Let's see. So phase one, if you've seen, I hope you all have driven up and down Harvard Street and seen the phase one completion. There's still some flex posts, concrete barriers, and some paint items, but that's almost complete. Looking forward, phase two will start, is tentatively scheduled for July 17th. We'll use night work again for milling portion and paving to limit the daytime disruption that seemed to go pretty well on phase one, and limited the disruption during the day. Let's see, Washington Square and Brookline Village parking, curb use studies. Stantec will present that draft plan that I think the T-Board has seen already to the select board in July, and then bring the final document back to the transportation board. The APS signals, we have a Complete Streets grant for the remaining 90 APS and countdown timers, and this work will be is being prepared for bidding. The traffic calming program, you know about phase one that is complete. We're still taking feedback. It's been very good. We have 2 clusters identified that we'll look at for future projects, and outreach will start on that soon. Let's see, Gateway East dedicated bus lane project there. I think they're planning on coming back to a future meeting to review options on that. The MBTAC branch consolidation work is underway at Tappan and Englewood, and some limited work at Dean Summit and Brandon Hall. Tappan and Englewood is anticipated to be complete by the end of July. Looking forward to that work continuing. The Beacon Street Bridle Path design survey is nearly complete. Waiting for the survey. Survey was delayed. It took some time. We had to get a new survey in to complete the work, as the former one went out of business, or closed up their survey shop. So the survey is going to get done. Then we'll get some concept work done before the design review committee starts back up to look at all that. The last thing I'll say, Lincoln Street School Safe Routes to School project. That's in 75-100% design phase, and right away work has started by the town as we're looking at all the parcels that we'll have to deal with for that. And then the Davis Path footbridge, we've had we're moving along, but it's got some really complicated utilities and just temporary trying to get equipment and figure all that out as part of the project. So that's looks like the design public hearing will be anticipated for that one in the fall. That's all I've got. It's all some of the highlights. I'm happy to take any questions.
A lot going on, Dan. Thank you. Questions for Dan? Dan, did you send out a written document this meeting? I didn't see it. If you did.
No, my director's report will come in the morning. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So
Good. I just
you'll
want to
get
make sure
that
I didn't
tomorrow.
miss it.
Yep.
No, thank
yes,
you.
ma'am. Yep.
I hear you. Thank you. No questions for Dan? Anybody have a comment? Public comment, question? Okay, we'll move on to our next item, which is item 5. Item 5A, discussion and action on the All Saints Parish request to establish 2 15-minute parking spaces north of the accessible parking space at 18 Dean Road and eliminate the 7 to 9 a.m. no parking regulation on Dean Road between Beacon and Beacon's Field Road. Take it away.
Yes, I will be taking this. This issue came up when the parking on Beacon Street headed eastbound was eliminated as part of the Green Line Accessibility Project in front of the All Saints Parish. And I have met with representatives from All Saints and floated these 2, what we kind of call short-term ideas, while there are some longer-term ideas that would require, in many cases, traffic study and further analysis. But we are coming to the board right now to address what All Saints has indicated is a concern, one with musicians and other people that are coming to drop off equipment or pick up equipment, and 2, with teachers that come to the school in the parish, unable to park on Dean Road because of the 7 to 9 a.m. parking prohibition on that side of Dean Road. So as shown here, what we have talked about with All Saints and they've agreed to, and we in DPW think is a good first step measure, is to change the two spaces that are north of the accessible space on Dean Road into 15-minute pickup drop-off spaces. That would be used for anybody that needs to drop off equipment or pick up equipment. And then the second thing is to remove the 7 to 9 a.m. parking prohibition on the west side of Dean Road.
All right, thanks, Rob. So granted, for me, it's been a few years since I used to go up and down Dean Road regularly in the morning when I took my kids to daycare. But from what I can recall, but for that no parking 7 to 9 prohibition, Dean Road would be backed up in the morning, pretty much back to Clinton, if not beyond. So do you not have those concerns anymore? Is traffic not, is there no longer a backup at this spot, or you're not concerned about backing up?
I don't know if maybe Dan, you were around when that happened. In terms of people parking on Dean Road, I don't know what the history was, I will admit, but it was felt that being able to have, I'll just restate, getting a place for teachers to park was something that All Saints was very concerned about.
Yeah, Dan, I see there is a HP spot there, which admittedly wasn't there when I was driving up and down the road regularly. So I guess there is parking there now during the morning. Anyway, just a concern that I have. Does anyone else wish to say anything? Wendy, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I had the same concern. This is a really busy area. I was just trying to see exactly how far back this is. Is there not parking on Beaconsfield?
There is on one side, I believe, on Beaconsfield.
Yeah. One side.
That is true.
I mean, I just know this is like a real, so right where you're proposing, it's still one lane. It's south of when the turn lane starts.
Correct. Yeah, and we're proposing the 7 to 9 a.m. no parking. It comes down here to Beaconsfield Road, and this is where we would propose that prohibition is just, it ends, because that's only where it exists.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think if you haven't, and it sounds like you haven't, somebody should probably go look at that area in this time frame before we remove something.
Thank you, Wendy. Richard, go ahead, please.
2 questions. Did we consider the 2 15-minute parking spots before the accessible parking location? Making sure that we have 2 lanes of traffic into that intersection. And then do we have any daytime parking permits for these abutters along here that have permission to park there all day with the permits if they have it?
To your first point, Richard, I'm pretty sure that where it's marked as 2 15-minute spaces, that is just parking today. So cars do park there today.
Well, yeah, okay.
I don't think there's any permits on this neighborhood for the Runkle School, and looking on Street View, it doesn't look like it.
Maybe some resident permits, but we didn't check how many are issued. But
Right.
Do those resident permits allow parking between 7 and 9?
it would not.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So
Currently.
Dan Martin, when did the HP spot go in, and has it caused much of an issue out there? Do you know?
I don't know when it went in. I haven't heard any issues with that particular spot. But I would guess that spot's been there longer than 10 years.
I just did a quick look on Street View, and it's been there since at least September 2007, because that's as far back as it goes.
Huh. Okay.
So that is it would be interesting to see if the person who pulled the permit is even there anymore, which is
So
a different issue.
I know it's like every Google shot for every year. There's no one in that spot. Good call out, John.
So I guess, is it no parking 7 to 9 now along that entire stretch, except for the HP spot?
That is correct.
Well, that doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense, in my humble opinion. So I'm just gonna say I'm finding this one tough. Nancy, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I do see we have some participants waiting to comment, and perhaps they're from the neighborhood and can shed some light on this. But looking at, I mean, if in fact, if there's an accessible space and there's parking in front of the accessible space now, then I don't see why the taking away the 7 to 9 would cause more of a backup. Just seems if there's parking already on that side, it shouldn't be a problem, but I'm anxious to hear from anyone who has more experience in this area.
Of course, and as we always do, we talk to the board and then we'll hear from the public. So if there's no one else from the board who wants to say anything, we'll start with Jesse Hefter and then we'll hear from Reverend Burton.
Just a quick question, Brian.
Okay.
Just to Nancy's point, I thought there wasn't parking besides the accessible space.
I
7 to
thought
9.
I heard them say that those 2 10-minute parking spaces are currently regular parking, that the ban is only behind the accessible space. Am I wrong?
Well, looking at maybe this is not current, but looking at the Google image, it says no parking here to.
That is correct, Wendy. You are right.
So there is no
Currently, those
parking.
spaces are not allowed. In front of the accessible space, there is a no parking arrow to that driveway, and there's no parking there currently.
Oh,
This is putting 2 new 15-minute spaces where they're currently prohibited.
Okay.
But
think
that
if we
was not
share
my-
the
I'm
street
just
I
view-
answering Wendy's
apologize. I
question.
thought you said to the contrary before.
yeah, let's pull up the street view so everybody can see the same image.
Thank you, Dan.
Good idea.
Have it ready if
And
that-
then
Then I had a different comment, Brian.
we'll get back to you, Jesse. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
yeah. I was just answering Wendy's question.
I appreciate that.
Sure.
This is the street view. This is the accessible space we're talking about here.
Can't
And
see
then
a
this
thing.
is where the
Okay.
two 15-minute spaces would be. And then this is the no parking here to corner. So this is where we're proposing the 2 15-minute. So they're not new spaces. And then the 8 to 7 to 9 restriction is after the accessible parking. So these two are already in place as parking in the morning.
Okay, Jesse, why don't you go ahead, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on your comment, Brian. As a resident south of there who travels that way quite frequently, the confluence of if it was to be allowed to park between 7 and 9, which would fill up basically for people commuting as well, then of course, that want to get to the T-stop, that conflated with the no turn on red that stops people from being able to drain off. The backup is, as you say today, when it gets the worst, it's been up to Fisher Avenue in the morning. And also keep in mind that there's a police officer directing traffic at Clinton and Dean from around 7:15 till 8 o'clock. And he'll allow more cars to go through until they back up past Clark and then wait. But those cars can't move for a long period of time because once there are 4 to 5 cars in the center lane of Dean approaching north to the light, any cars parked on the right-hand side block anyone from being able to get into the no turn on red. And once the no turn on red lane, and they can't fill up because they're blocked. And when they fill up, nobody else who wants to go in the right lane can move into the light changes, which blocks the regular traffic. It's messy. again, primarily because of the no turn on red and the cars blocking. So if there's no handicapped space being used and no one in the 7 to 9, then you can have what used to be 2 lanes of traffic, easily making the turn on red onto Beacon and the cars going straight across the intersection. It's gotten incredibly worse, Ryan, to your point. Again, many mornings to Clark, back up to Clinton, backed up to Fisher Ave. And the other thing I'll say again, in causing bad behavior, I will tell you that the main reason that the residents of Beaconsfield Road requested speed humps is because drivers found another way to get around a blockage on the street. And that was to tear down Beaconsfield Road to get up to Tappan and make the left. And others just turn in at the side street behind Star Market and come out on the Star Market. So those are the 2 pathways drivers take today because of the impediments we put in their way to make the regular turn at Dean Road. So taking the 7 to 9 away, it'll just make the problem a lot worse.
Thank you, Jesse. Reverend Burton, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm afraid that I'm just going to complicate things for you. But this issue came up because of the parking that was removed for the T access. And I don't know that you all were fully aware that our building is not just a Quiet Parish Church. There's more than 500 people a week that come through here 7 days a week throughout most of the year. We're a significant community hub for Brookline and the Boston area. There are 2 faith congregations here. There's a cooperative nursery school. There's 3 resident music organizations, all of which have called All Saints home for decades. And the removal of those parking spaces on Beacon Street, including the ADA accessible space directly in front of our building, has created some serious and immediate problems for everybody here. And to our knowledge, All Saints is now the only house of worship in Brookline with no ADA parking and no direct parking access to the entrance. This is not an abstract impact. The parents and caregivers dropping off children at the co-op now have to cross Beacon Street or Dean Road, where they used to be able to park right on Beacon Street, exactly where you're talking about, where this is that northbound lane there. There's no place for musicians to unload instruments. There's people with mobility who have worshiped and met here for decades can no longer get easily to our door. They have to cross either Beacon or Dean or walk down many, many blocks on Beacon Street. Now, we want to be clear that we have long encouraged public transportation. We support the T's accessibility improvements. We support the bicycle initiatives here. We also support these short-term proposals, but we realize that they are short-term. These are only first steps and they're not enough. Having no ADA spot is totally unacceptable. Having no direct parking or loading access endangers our ability and the ability of our users to even function. And we're urging you to direct the Director of Transportation and Mobility to continue working with us for longer term solutions. We're very grateful for Rob and his assistance thus far. But the longer term solutions are outlined in the document that I sent out and that I hope you were able to read, including maybe reconfiguring Dean Road, restoring off-peak parking on Beacon Street possibly, and making sure that All Saints does not remain the only house of worship in this town without direct accessible parking and no loading access to our own front door. We have a little bit of a grace period in this summer season when things are quieter, but come September, programs will gear up, concerts will start happening, and we hope to have a clear solution identified by then. So direct parking and loading access is not incidental to our mission. It's essential, and we ask for your partnership in finding a real solution to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. Could I ask a question?
Sure.
The rectory, I assume you call it a rectory.
It is a rectory, yes.
Thank you. Sorry. I went to Catholic school. I don't know what to call stuff if it's not, Catholic school stuff. Is there a driveway for that building? And if so, where is that located?
So when the rectory was put in, and there are multiple units in the rectory, there was a waiver given for the parking in that unit. The only way that I am able to park is that There is a parishioner that lives in the brownstones right next to the rectory, and they rent us a parking spot in the back that is through that alleyway that you enter off of Beacon Street,
Okay.
around 1780 Beacon Street, something like that. But no other units in this building have parking. They have to pay for parking elsewhere.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. Bob Miller, go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi. Bob Miller, I live at 19 Copley Street. I have pretty limited knowledge, but I do sometimes drive through here. And so I'm going to present this more as a question than a statement. But my anecdotal experience is that when it's been backed up here, it seems like it's mostly people in the left lane at the Beacon intersection who are either going straight or turning left, and less so the people who are turning right. Because my experience has been that sometimes I'm behind a line of traffic when I want to make a right. And actually, if I see it being really bad, I'll sometimes turn right on Beaconsfield and find another way to make my turn onto Beacon. So I'm just wondering if maybe the backup problem isn't that right-hand lane, which would maybe mitigate some of the stress of this situation.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Roberta, go ahead, please.
Hi, thanks. I'm a parish member at All Saints, and I just wanted to clarify in terms of the temporary relief that Rob Guptill has been talking about, these spaces along Dean Road. As Richard Burden said, it's because of this problem we now have on Beacon Street that we're looking for some temporary relief on Dean Road. And we know that that's a busy road, especially in the morning. The challenging thing is for the 40+ corner co-op families who are trying to drop their kids off for nursery school, they can no longer come along Beacon Street. So lifting the 7 to 9 a.m. would give them a place. They still have to cross Dean Road with their kids and their strollers and stuff, but it would give them some closer place to drop their children off. They'd also be able to use those 2 15-minute loading zones for that purpose too. And then, as Rob said, the loading zones would also help, you know, if we have a wedding or a funeral, we have florists, we have, you know, caterers, we have hearses, you know. I don't know how we're going to work things out on Beacon Street ultimately, but these two measures, the loading zone and the parking spaces on Dean Road, are really just what we see as sort of temporary relief over the summer to give us a little bit of ability to get people into our building closer than they are able to at this point, because otherwise they've got to go several hundred yards, and that's a real problem for many people.
Okay, thanks very much. Lisa, go ahead, please. Go ahead, please.
Good evening. Thank you. My name's Lisa Feltner, and I'm the current senior warden at All Saints Parish. And I just want to emphasize what both our rector, Richard, and Roberta, who manages our facility use, say, that we're not a quiet Sunday morning parish. We really are a community hub for Brookline, and it's not just parishioners who come from other areas, although of course we have a lot of Brookline residents who attend, but it's also the evening concerts. It's our supporting our sister programs in South Boston. We prepare meals. We bring in 50 bags of groceries every week, make deliveries. And right now we don't even have, you know, without the Beacon Street parking, we can't even bring in the arborists or landscapers. We tried to bring them in and they left because there's nowhere to park. We do not have a parking lot. The driveway that comes in further up around 1795 or so, that private drive that goes in back, it's a whole grade difference. So it's like the garden level. So there's no way to drive in there and even access the churchyard in the back or the side. And, you know, people also park there to use the park, of course, that abuts All Saints. So we're very concerned. We really appreciate Rob Guptill and others working with us. We do need a solution for direct access. And it's really I just have to say, it's really awful, not just for parishioners, but our various 12-step groups, if you will, who have disabled members who have nowhere to park curbside now at the facility. And I mean, we built a ramp off of Beacon into the parish house so that we wouldn't have to separate people with disabilities and trying to come in on the Dean Road side, because as you said, that's more busy, and you could safely park on Beacon Street and come. You'll see a concrete pad there that's been there for decades. We used to have the ADA parking there, and it was just removed without any communication with us either. So we're really feeling a little desperate, even though it's summer and fall is coming, and Brookline Symphony alone has 7 concerts scheduled for this next season. So there are hundreds of people coming, and we really, value being a partner and a hub for Brookline and as part of our mission. So we really hope that we could work with you on some longer term solutions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Is anybody representing the police department here tonight? I see Chief Cantor is here. Welcome, Chief. But I don't see anybody from the police.
No,
Oh,
I'm
Mike,
here,
there
Brian.
you are. Hello,
Hi,
Mike.
Brian. How are you?
What do you got for us on this topic, good sir?
I have concerns like you did with the traffic backup using Dean Road. I'm not sure how much space the MBTA will be taking from Beacon Street, but my suggestion would be to the first available spot approaching Dean in front of the brownstones goes to an ADA parking space, and then 2 15-minute drop-offs, and then other 2-hour parking behind that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your insights as always.
Because there's a crossing guard there at Beacon and Dean in the morning. It's a civilian, and adding more parents with young children crossing Dean would be an added number of children there.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Jonathan, go ahead, please.
And I agree with that. That sounds reasonable. I was a little concerned that we keep calling it a short-term solution, but I haven't yet heard what short-term is. And short-term open-ended is not short-term. So if we were to vote for this at all, it would have to have a sunset clause at a minimum. The only issue with putting the parking at the first available spot on Beacon is that it would have to get renoticed. That is not what we're here to renoticed.
Renoticed. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. Misheard you.
So question for a long-term solution though, at 1101 Beacon Street, we have some cut-ins or a cut-in. And I understand that's for medical reasons, but this is also performing a public good.
Down in Oz.
Yes. I don't know if we can do that here or not. I know the trees are a challenge, but if that's a long-term solution, I would imagine that would benefit everyone here.
Thank you. Dan or Rob or someone, do we have the MBTA schematic for what was approved in terms of moving parking spaces around at the station somewhere that you could pull up?
I'm hoping that Dan can pull it up, but I can speak to, I believe that where the parking now as it exists, because that change has been made on Beacon Street, it's a fair ways back from Dean Road where the first available parking space is. So I think that's one of the concerns, and certainly Richard or Lisa they're on the ground. They could certainly tell us exactly what the situation is today. So maybe I might look to them to tell us what it is.
Well, I understand that. I want to see what we approved already for this area, which I think is under construction, but should be done soon. Does anybody have that? If not, I can look in my email.
Dan Martin, you got it, or I can pull it up.
If you have it ready,
Okay. I'll just share quickly.
Thank you, Dylan. Okay, so,
Here's what it was before.
right.
Um,
So go back. So it looks like, okay. Right. So there'll be an accessible spot at the corner of Dean and Beacon, sort of inbound on the far side. And what did we approve, Dylan? Can you go to that one?
what do you mean by that?
Is the one we're
Oh.
looking at, it's going
Yeah,
to look
this is
like?
what's approved. So the parking in front of the
Yeah.
station there had to be removed to widen the platform.
Yep. Okay, so long-term, there'll be an accessible spot put on Beacon eastbound on the far side of Dean, going inbound. And then another one on the other side of the street, probably won't help too much. Looks like, is that little blue sort of car thing, is that the furthest spot back on Beacon headed towards Cleveland Circle, or is that?
Probably the first white car that's parked, Ryan. If
Like
not
what,
the second.
1795 Beacon?
Okay, how far back is that?
Probably right
well,
where it says 2026 in the
Okay.
corner.
Okay.
Can you go back up to the before slide again? So it's one space that's moved over? And then lost.
This one was here and it's going to be moved over here in the final condition. This one's
And the
staying.
accessible space in front was shifted to the far side.
Yes,
of the
over.
this one
intersection.
is shifted over here.
Okay, and then all those other spaces are lost.
Right.
Got it.
So Reverend or Roberta, I hate to put you on the spot, but can you put that back up,
Oh,
Dylan?
I'm sorry.
Thanks. Trying to find a good compromise here. Would the 15-minute spots on Beacon Street in front of where that new accessible spot would be, would that help at least for the short term while we figure out a longer term solution?
I'm not sure which is accessible spot you're referring to.
Yeah.
So right where that cursor is, I don't know if you can see it moving. So it's on the far side of Dean Road on Beacon Street going inbound, sort of at the bottom of the page.
Huh.
I think if that works better for you all, it's essentially the same as for us, it's essentially the same as having the loading zone 15-minute where on Dean Road. But if this helps with traffic flow on Dean Road, it's because people will still have to cross Dean in order to get things to the church. It's just.
Well, I'll just say my concerns, Reverend, are that I think we have a little more homework to do on this. And so I want to find a short-term solution that might at least mitigate some of the effects for you folks over the summer. And I hear how busy your building is, and I honestly, I didn't know it was that busy. So congrats on running an awesome program or series of programs. So what I'm thinking is if we, in addition to the accessible spot that's marked there, sort of the two in front of it on Beacon inbound, we turned into 15-minute loading zone spaces or something like that. Now, we haven't noticed that, so I'm not sure we can even approve that tonight. But at least that's where I'm thinking, but I'm just one of 6 people on this board, and I see Len has his hand up. So Len, help me out here.
I just wanted to say that proposal sounds better to me in that it'll encourage pedestrians to cross at the crosswalk, to cross Dean.
Okay, Jonathan, then we'll hear from Lisa.
Yeah, agreed on that. In terms of what could happen actually tonight, I also agree, Brian, that we can't make a decision on that tonight.
Okay.
One quick question though, there is a hydrant and a mailbox with a no parking here to corner. That looks like it's about a space wide. Can that be marked as a loading zone rather than no parking?
Whereabouts is that, Jonathan?
You'd have to go to Street View to be able to see it clearly.
Okay.
Is it on the far side?
Far side, yeah.
This one.
Well, I see where
Yeah,
you are.
so there, the corner is about a parking space in
Yep.
length. And I think we did that in front of, or next to the locksmith with a similar kind of space where we just hashed it out and called it, like 15-minute loading zone or something like that instead.
That's not a bad idea. Dan, we've already approved the accessible spot at that location, I think by virtue of our vote on the MBTA thing. So do we know if that's in place yet or not?
The MBTA is working on installing it. They haven't done it yet.
So it's not installed yet?
Not yet.
Okay, so in the interim, theoretically, could you go out there with temporary signage and sort of make it accessible in the interim to help these folks out?
Yes, we can. We're also trying to get a concrete pad installed as part of that work, but we can get the signs in sooner.
Well, I think hearing from the folks that are in the building, I think we owe them a little mitigation at the very least in the short term. So if we could put even just a stanchion out there with a temporary accessible spot, I think that would at least help. But anyway, Lisa, please go ahead.
Thank you. And again, I'm encouraged to hear you all thinking creatively what can be done. I also just wanted to note that recently concrete pads were poured apparently for Blue Bike Station to be installed right in front of the church, in front of the walkways between the rectory and the front of the church, which, is concerning because even if, again, people coming up and putting their hazards on to unload, they won't be able to do curbside because the blue bikes will be there. And I did take a look at the Blue Bike expansion plan and saw that other spaces had been identified, including the area where you're talking about now, where the mailbox and the as well as up at I'm sorry, it begins with E. I'm forgetting the name of the street, but just a block away. And then it was expanded at Star Market just a block away. So I just want to mention that because besides the ADA and sometimes van accessible, it's just, again, whether it's a double base, we have harpists that are, legitimate loading needs. It's not, we just want you to understand, we appreciate your response because it's not just like nice to have curbside space to the church. We do have legitimate parking and loading and accessibility needs. And we're worried because the MBTA plan, also all the other ADA spaces you say you're putting back are also further away from what was there before. So it's, people are worried. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Brian, I think now I'm looking at the Blue Bike proposed plans and everything in the two locations, which we're trying to grab parking spaces for this project. We got Blue Bike proposal. I think we should actually reconsider those plans for that particular location. Taking 13 parking spaces away from the services here for the church and the community and compounding it with the Blue Bike Station. And I think that should be also taken a look at also.
Sounds like it. Wendy, go ahead, please.
Can you repeat? There was a mention of parking in the back. Did I hear that right?
I was asking if there was access in the back, and it sounds like there's not.
No, none at all. Or there was something about other people using that.
Well, there is a driveway. If you look on Street View, there's a driveway in the back that's accessible off of Beacon Street for the condos, but it doesn't go as far as the rectory, and it sounds like there's a grade separation between the two. So,
Okay, got it. And then I see this curb cut on Dean Street, on Dean Road, but doesn't really go into, I don't know why, do you use that?
Can I answer?
Yeah.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah.
We do use that sometimes. My understanding is that that has, is supposed to be reserved for a fire lane because that's where the fire water area is, but we have used it for temporary parking at times. But that could be another sort of long-term solution, is taking a look at that section of the Dean Road side of the church and seeing if there's the possibility of a cutout or a driveway or something else there.
I was just wondering I mean, it does look like it's a small space. I was thinking more just for your loading issue and unloading. But it's also not the easiest to get into. It looks
Yeah, it
like.
requires backing out into Dean
Yeah.
Road, which is
Yeah,
a problem.
really not a good thought. Okay.
Is that chain link fence the property line?
Sorry?
The behind the church, I'm looking at the park behind it.
Mhm.
I was just asking the Reverend if the chain link fence that you see, is that the property line?
That is correct, as far as I know.
Okay.
Jonathan, go ahead.
And Brian, you struck on a point I want to emphasize here. We approved a relocation of an accessible parking space, not a removal, and then a period of time, and then a new parking space. That parking space needs to go in immediately.
Agreed.
No waiting for a concrete pad or anything like that. So the MBTA needs to be noticed that.
Well, yeah, and I'm just trying to think in terms of open meeting law, what we can do tonight is put the temporary ADA spot on the far side of Dean Road that we talked about.
I mean, it's a permanent spot, Brian. It's a relocated spot from the other side.
No, exactly. I mean, I just mean
So,
temporary
yeah.
signage while we wait for permanent signage.
But that shouldn't be the responsibility of the DPW. The MBTA needs to put that in.
Yes. Well, I was just suggesting if they could go out with a temporary sign tomorrow and do it. While we wait for our friends of the T to do what they do.
I'm sure system-wide accessibility would love to hear.
So what I think we're gonna do, what I think we have to do here, Roberta, Lisa, and Richard, is we need to bring this item back after we have done more of a public notice so that we're not violating the open meeting law. In the meantime, though, I think you've heard, we want to work with you to solve some of this. I do think we'll get that ADA spot that I just mentioned in as soon as possible. And hopefully that at least will go some way towards mitigating what's going on out there. I think longer term, we need to look at, yes, that blue bike station location. And what else we can do on Dean Road. And you still have the other HP spot on Dean Road that is there now. So you can use that, and then we'll put the other spot on Beacon, and then hopefully we can figure out a couple of loading zone areas proximate to your building and continue to try to iterate. But you folks are out there on a day-to-day basis, so please let us know and feel free to contact any of us individually. Richard, I see your hand.
Yeah, just last comments is I also liked, like the Reverend in the whole group to understand where people are coming from, whether we can utilize parking in the medium, on the other side of the trolley stop, if reserved spots there, just understanding where people are coming from and kind of, just going outside the box of not just the curbing, but, if those things can provide some service support for your needs. So, thank you.
Thank you. So Rob, Dan and Dan, let's bring this back next meeting in July. Let's try to look at this holistically for everything that's planned out there, including the blue bikes. And if there are other ideas that you can come up with, even putting in some loading zone areas on Dean Road, maybe that's worth investigating. And if we can notice it in advance to let the neighborhood know, then maybe we can act on it in July. So that these folks we can get at least get it in before it sounds like they get very busy in the fall. Maybe we can get it done by then. So. Okay.
Sounds good, Ryan.
Thank you,
Thanks.
folks. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to 5B. We're only 15 minutes late. Discussion and action on the appointment of Todd McFadden to the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Take it away.
So I'm happy to share the memo.
Yep.
So certainly, if anybody from the Bike Advisory Committee wants to speak, they're sort of welcome. But as said in the memo, Todd is a lifelong bicyclist, and he works as a development engineer. Commutes 1 to 2 times a week in favorable weather, and he would be thrilled to join the BAC to help advocate for safer biking infrastructure in Brookline.
Todd, are you here?
I am here. Thank you.
Well, thank you for volunteering. We appreciate that. Is there anything you'd like to say? Go ahead, please.
Oh, thank you. I've been in Brookline a long time, but I finally now have some. My children are older, so I have time to devote to the volunteer work that I've been wanting to do for a long time. So I'm passionate about cycling and safe infrastructure, and I've been very impressed with how the BAC works so well with the transportation board, and I feel like it's a really positive relationship that's beneficial to the whole community. So I'm eager to join and help where I can.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone have any questions for Todd McFadden? Will anybody from the public wish to comment on this particular agenda item? Or Emily Jacobson, or who is the chair of the Bike Advisory Committee now? It is Emily still. Hi, Emily.
One more week.
Yeah, I'm still chair until July 1st, but we're really excited to have Todd join us. He's been a friend of the committee for a really long time, and it's great that he's going to be more involved.
Excellent, thank you. All right, and unless anybody has any questions, is there a motion to appoint Todd McFadden to the Bicycle Advisory Committee for a 3-year term beginning immediately and expiring July 1, 2029?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. Rob, why don't you call the roll?
All right, sure. Wendy?
Yep.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Richard? Yes. Nancy?
Yes.
Yes.
Len? Brian?
Yes. Thank you. Congratulations, Todd, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Look forward to working with you too.
Congratulations.
Okay, 5C, discussion and action on a letter to the ZBA relative to the 40 Kent Street proposal.
Brian, we have the developer here tonight with their team as well. And as you mentioned, this is for 40 Kent Street. It is a major impact project. They've submitted a traffic impact assessment that was in your materials, and we also have architectural and landscaping plans. The ZBA has requested the board's input on the transportation-related aspects of the project, including mitigation. And after the presentation, we'll work with the board to draft the contents of a letter that they'll authorize you to send to the ZBA. And then, Trina, if you want to introduce the project, and I can promote whoever is going to be presenting as well.
Of course. Good evening, everyone. I'm Trina Murphy with D&D Homes. Here with me tonight is Bob Allen, our zoning attorney. Katya from Verdant is our landscape architect, and Gary from Bowman is our transportation consultant. So I will be doing the bulk of the presentation tonight. Katya will step in after me to talk a little bit about the streetscape and site plan, and then we are all available for any questions that you may have. Dan and I had spoken previously, and just to help you guys become familiar with the project, I'm going to do a very fast run through of the site and project details. So if I could be allowed to share.
Let's make Trina co-host, please.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Trina, I think it made you a co-host. Are you able to share now?
I can now. Thank you.
Okay.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is our proposed conditions plan. So you can see Kent Street is here. Webster Place runs here. And we own the two parcels here. This is 40 Kent Street and this is 40 Webster Place. So currently there are single structures on each site. We'll be combining the site, putting in a large 5-story building. And then the structure that's currently at 40 Kent Street, we've agreed to relocate it to the rear here at 40 Webster Place. So it will still exist. So I'm going to jump into some quick massing models to give you a visual of what this looks like. So as you can see here, again, we have Kent Street here, Webster Place rounding the corner. This is the relocated 40 Kent Street building that we're preserving and the new 5-story structure. So this is the shared courtyard between these two buildings. So this is the main entrance for this building, and this is the main entrance for the 40 Kent building. There is a underground garage that runs underneath both structures. The only entry point of that garage that contains parking is off of Kent Street. So the project has 116 residential units. It's a fully residential building, fully residential project. It has 23 below grade parking spaces, 3 motorcycle spaces, and 131 residential bike spaces. There are also additional guest bike parking on the exterior that Katya will run through. So let me just click through so you can kind of see the different elevations and different angles of the building. So this is the rear facing Linden. This is the Kent Street elevation, and this is where you'll see the garage entry. So it's a signaled ramp. And then again, this is the only entry and exit of the garage. And just a close-up of that. You'll also see here, this is the entry for the trash room. So we have a below-grade trash room that the trash is carried up through a lift through this area, and it will be picked up through private collection. Here is a view from Kent Street looking down Webster Place. So a nice pretty view of the preserved building. And again, just another view of the joint entries. And then very quickly, just to run through, this is the main entry. We're coming to the lobby. So this is where mail deliveries, package pickup, et cetera, are going to be. This here is where that lift that I was talking about with the garage for the trash pickup. This again is just a close-up showing you the lobby area where all that traffic will be. This is the below grade garage. So again, we have the 23 parking spaces. We will have electric vehicle charging stations as required. We have handicap parking as well, 3 motorcycle spaces. You can see all of the bike parking as well, including electric bike spaces. And then quickly just clicking through the residential floors. We do have a roof deck, and these are just more elevations. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Katya. She's going to talk about the site plan and the streetscape, some of the details that we're all more focused on here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Can you all hear me? My name is Katya Posadlo, Verdant Landscape Architecture. Great. Okay, good. Thank you. So what you're looking at is the landscape plan. Kent Street is along the right-hand side, as you can see, and Webb's Place, wraps around the corner there. And if you were to drive that direction, if you could, you'd get to like the corner at Starbucks and Henry Bears Park and that zone along Harvard. So I'll run through this quickly as we can get to your comments in the traffic engineer's review of things. So we're proposing a variety of transportation-related improvements that are represented on this plan. First, let me point out that the primary pedestrian entries to the residences are located off of that central unit paved plaza which is at the elbow of Webster Place, where the road bends. The garage entry, as Trina described, is located off of Kent Street. And it will be signaled so that although it's, I don't know if it's 10 or 12 feet wide, I can't remember that exact width, but it's not a two-way. Two cars will be passing on that ramp at the same time, but it'll be signaled so that for those 23 car parking spaces, there'll be a signal to tell you it's okay to go up or it's okay to go down. We understand that there's a request to provide a stop sign at the top of that driveway for exiting cars, which we will be glad to incorporate into our plans moving forward. The existing sidewalks along the public right-of-way will also be will be reconstructed according to DPW standards. And since this project is relying on pedestrian accommodations for a portion of the commute, a large portion of the commuting, we will design and install or upgrade there's an existing crosswalk, but the two crosswalks that you see in this picture here. One that crosses Webster Place that exists now, but needs some improvements, and then one across Kent Street. The one across Kent Street will require, unfortunately, the removal of most likely 2 on-street metered parking spaces, which are on the south side or the right side of this plan. All of this work that we're doing will be in accordance with town and MAAB, ADA accessibility guidelines. Furthermore, given the likelihood of an increase of deliveries and pickup and drop off needs for this project and for the residents who will live here, we're proposing to install a temporary parking zone. You can see indicated there by that white striped area parallel alongside the Webster Place roadway. This will include, as has been listed in the memo, appropriate signage indicating loading zone or pickup drop off or whatever it needs to say. And we're imagining, maybe mail delivery people or Amazon or whatever would stop here to deliver packages. This could be the move in, move out place, pick up and drop off for taxi, Uber, whatever you call them. And what am I missing? I'm sure there are other reasons why temporary car things would happen here. Right now it's shown as 10 feet wide and fairly long. Its exact size will be further engineered and reviewed, and will follow whatever necessary dimensions and recommendations that the engineering department would like us to utilize. I also want to point out that in addition to the very large interior bike room for residents' permanent and covered bike storage, we have 4 exterior bike racks for temporary or visitor bike parking. They're located right up front pretty prominently on either side of the lobby entry. We're trying to promote bike use. So they're underneath an awning, but they're exterior. So they'd be more for someone coming to visit. I think that's all I need to share, and I'm sure you guys have comments, but I don't know if Gary has some information he might like to share as well. I'd like to turn over to Gary, perhaps.
Sure, and I can just run through it at high level. I mean, we submitted a complete traffic study. If there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them. At a high level, you have 116 units, but given the limited amount of parking, the proximity to transit, and the ability to walk and bike through the area, there's very few vehicle trips that are associated with this project. And our study analyzed all of those for a number of intersections around the project location, and again can go through that. It really comes down to the immediate site access, and we've talked about the garage access for the few vehicles that are in there, and then really having this loading zone, which is roughly about 80 feet long, so it gives you quite a bit of space there curbside for those deliveries and other, the Uber Eats and the ride shares and the like that will be in that space. So, that's an important element, as well as the pedestrian improvements to provide that access for those destined off to the Green Line or one of the bus routes that are serving the area. Again, happy to go through it in a lot more detail if anybody has questions or wants to talk about certain things, but just wanted to run through some of the high points.
Thank you, Gary. Seems straightforward. Bobby, I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Yeah, let me just close real quick, Mr. Chair. Just for the record, Bob Allen, 300 Washington Street in Brookline Village. Thanks for the opportunity. So just as part of a major impact project, which basically means anything over 10,000 square feet or these number of units here, it kicks in. We had to go through a design advisory team, which include neighbors and everything. And this project was really driven by the neighbors. You know, the Elks Building, which was the building on the corner of Kent and Webster. You know, it's funny. The other building was actually on National Register, but everybody wanted to save this Elks Building. It's much more grand and you know, moving it closer to the neighborhood, shifted the building away from the neighborhood and really got that tomato ripening on the vine with everybody on board. And then when we started talking crosswalks and the proximity to the T, I think people got excited about it. And then, you know, we talked with some housing folks. They really like the idea of micro units, which we don't see a lot of in town. We see a lot of luxury condos. So we really look at this as a new style of building here in the town, something I haven't permitted in the past. So it's pretty exciting to have these number of units. It'll be a lot of turnover, I anticipate, because you know how long you're going to live in a micro unit. But with this proximity to the T, the number of bike spots, and the proximity to the LMA, I think this is going to be a really successful project. So we worked, Maria Morelli from the planning department worked with transportation. We've pretty much agreed to everything, but there's one item I just want to bring your attention to, which is number 9D on the list, which states new residents shall be offered a 1-month, 30-day unlimited bus pass, subway, or bike share membership for the first year of residency, limited to 1 pass per unit. We have no trouble that sort of initially. Running that in perpetuity, leaving aside the fact, I don't know how that gets enforced. I think it just becomes a little cumbersome. So if we would certainly be supportive of that to the first group of tenants that go in there. But running it in perpetuity seems different, I would say. This isn't a 40B project or anything like that. We're complying to a certain degree. We're getting any necessary zoning relief, and we're headed to the zoning board next. So, and we had unanimous support from the planning board and the DAT that included neighbors. So that's all I have to say, Brian. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Bobby, and thank you, Trina, and everyone for the presentations. I like to say I spent some of the best hours of my life in that old Elks Building, but that's probably not true. I can't believe that it's being saved. I don't know if any of you have been inside, but whoa.
I have been inside many times, Brian, and it's very scary. And I question whether you were one of the ones that left the beer cans on the ground in the last hurrah. So
still trying to get the smell out of the place, Brian.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck. Good
What
luck is
about
all
the
I gotta tell
Christmas
you.
tree sale? Is that going to remain?
Yeah, right. That's funny. They haven't done that in years. Listen, they wanted to move on and they made that tough decision, but that building is really in tough shape. So it needs a lot of attention. So we're putting a lot of attention to it.
Ginnery Twitchell's building. But anyway, Jonathan, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think this is a great project. I don't really have much to ask here. The only thing is on the opposite side of Webster. I'll note the sidewalk does end, and I understand that that's not the abutting property of this. But if a curb ramp and a crosswalk could be installed to at least connect that sidewalk to the proposed sidewalk, or if the developer is willing to replace that sidewalk along that edge to Kent Street as well, since you're likely to rip up portions of the roadway to do utility connections and such. Anyway, it would be appreciated to have that block meet full accessibility requirements.
Jonathan, you're talking about where along Kent, parallel to Kent Street, where it hits the other across the street, Webster?
Across the street along Webster.
Correct.
Coming into Kent Street, yes.
Yeah.
Opposite
Yes,
the loading
that
zone,
stretch
right?
there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, understood.
So there is no sidewalk coming
That's
from
not even a
the
sidewalk.
other side of Kent, which does have a sidewalk, Brian, and then you turn the corner and it disappears completely.
Right.
And you're kind of stranded if you're not able-bodied.
Like a foot wide.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Richard, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think what Bobby Allen mentioned was I think 429 Harvard Street did 1 month of the MBTA pass and a year for blue bikes. So it's kind of in line with what they 429 Harvard Street did. That's all I got. Yeah.
Go ahead, Len.
I think I counted 8 cargo bike spaces. How many are required? And is 8 the right number to count?
We are compliant with the project. Oh, we have exactly what is required. I can jump to that slide.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have our 8. We're fully compliant.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Wendy, go ahead.
I thought I had read, maybe I was looking at old plans earlier, that the driveway was 2-way. Was that a change that it's 1-way?
It's 2-way. It's a signaled ramp, so they will go in and out through that same passage.
Oh, I see, but they can't pass.
But not
each other.
simultaneously.
At the same time, yeah.
Okay. So it's signaled on both sides to keep them from.
Keep them down below and keep them up top.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
My question was, you mentioned there'll be 2 parking spaces removed. Can you just, which ones will be removed? Is it the 2 on Webster Place?
They're on Kent Street, actually.
They're on Kent. Okay.
Sorry, bear with me, guys.
Yeah, the parking spaces aren't delineated or shown on the survey as to their exact location along the right-hand side of this page, but they'd be located where the crosswalk to the right dead ends onto that side, or not dead ends, but where it would transition to a detectable warning panel on the ADA ramp.
I gotcha. So there's no crosswalk there now. That's a new crosswalk,
Correct.
Right.
if memory serves. Yes. Okay.
And the meter.
Dan Martin. Oh, sorry.
Should
Go ahead,
forgive me.
Trina.
I was going to say the meters are almost perfectly positioned at the midpoint of the proposed crosswalk.
I just wanted to point out there are 2
I know where you live.
meters. They're permit parking only, so they're for the commercial hang tag users. There's the lot right near here that's also available, and the meters for the permit parking extend from Kent to Station, and then a little further down Kent and then there were meters aboard that approved for Webster Place opposite this loading zone. Those won't be able to be installed anymore. And we weren't able to put them in because the wall was falling over and we couldn't fit the parking meters. So
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that if that other building ever comes up, we're gonna have to do something with that sidewalk, because that's a mess.
Well, there's a lot of talk about that other building.
Okay,
across the street.
Yeah.
well,
Hopefully.
we look forward to hearing from you, Bobby. So I want to just real quick talk about what Bobby mentioned, 9D. I agree, it's a confusing sentence. New residents shall be offered a 1-month (parentheses 30-day) unlimited bus stroke subway pass or a bike share membership for the first year of residency. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think what we're trying to say there is that new residents, the initial new residents will get either a 1-year Blue Bikes membership, comma, or a 1-month bus or subway MBTA pass. I mean, I don't know who actually wrote the sentence on the thing, but what was intended?
that was copied from the 420 on Harvard Street, and my interpretation of that, and I might need to clarify with the other developers, that they would need to sign a year-long lease to get that benefit. I didn't think they meant that it was only for the first year of the building.
Okay. I think we definitely need to wordsmith that sentence, because it is confusing. But Wendy, maybe you can help me.
Wordsmith
Well,
that for hot.
Yeah, we like struggled with this at our last meeting. And
Right.
I think this, if I remember the explanation, and we could look back, because I think we wordsmithed it then, or we requested a change in wording. But my memory was that in the first year that somebody signs a lease or comes in, they can get 1 month paid for of something, right? Of a T-Pass, or I didn't remember the full year.
Yeah, it was full year Blue Bike.
Oh, it was full year?
Either a month of unlimited T or a full year of the Blue Bike.
So it was any time in their
one
first
per
year,
unit.
right? They get it for 1 month.
Yeah. It's like introductory
So
offer.
we are suggesting that the building owner has to do that in perpetuity whenever a lease turns over.
I think that was the way it was stated last time. So for each tenant,
Well, I mean, I
They-
hear
yeah.
what Bobby's saying, that it's almost impossible to enforce. Right?
We don't mind doing it for the initial tenant. And again, this isn't a 40B. 429 was a 40B. So they're kind of taking advantage of they're not complying at all with town bylaws, going through the same town process that we go through. But we're fine with the initial term of it with the first 113, 116 folks doing that. I think it just gets a little cumbersome after the fact.
So it's a one-time offer.
That's right. When you
Per
first
unit.
get there, you get it.
Got it.
And we're fine with that.
A grand opening special, Bobby.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I'm hearing it's a one-time offer, and it's 1 month for MBTA or 1 year for MBTA. Sorry, 1 year for Blue Bike subscription.
Right. For the initial 116 unit leaseholders, 1 per unit.
First leaseholders.
and it was any time in that year, right? So they could pick any month that they want their T-Pass.
Fine by us.
What's that?
That's fine.
I think
And I'm
that's
happy to work
reasonable.
with Dan on some language that is consistent with what the board stated.
Okay. Anybody from the public wish to comment on this? We don't like to do the back and forth, but if you have a comment, we'd be delighted to hear from you. Not seeing hands jump up. Okay, so there is no public comment. We'll come back to the board. I think we're in a good spot on this one, folks. I don't know how you all feel. If anybody, Dan?
Do you want to review each item, or is the board a chance to review the memo and then they'll authorize you to craft the letter that gets sent? However you want to go over it.
I mean, I read it and it seems reasonable to me, but Wendy, go ahead, please.
I just had one question about one of the comments that was sent in by an abutter about the traffic and the request to consider making Webster one way. And is that something that has been talked about? Or, I mean, I think that the comment had concerns about the two-way increasing and getting out of Webster Place back onto Harvard, if I remember correctly.
I can tell you what they said during the hearing is, you know, behind Starbucks, there's the town lot there.
Yeah.
You can take a left out of
Right.
out of there, and that's so it's only two ways, kind of from that point on.
I'm right in that spot.
Yeah. So people think it's confusing, and currently UPS parks right up on the sidewalk there next to Henry Bear, so it gets difficult, but it's been their concern, and they were talking about coming to the transportation board to discuss it at a future time.
And I can't remember in that lot, can you also exit onto Kent, or you can only exit onto
Oh,
Webster?
you can go on Kent. You take a right, of course, on Kent.
Mhm.
But if you go the other way, you beat a light.
Is there value in putting a
Beat
do
the
not
light,
enter?
right? You don't have to wait for the light.
Right.
Is there value in putting a do not enter somewhere on Webster in front of the Boston Vision maybe or something?
I just want to comment. The only feedback I've received before this project on Webster Place was complaint that the two-way went to the elbow, and they were upset. I think they had gotten a ticket for what they felt was improper ticketing because they said it had to go to the elbow. We did look into the regulations, and the two-way does go to the elbow, and we did put in signage indicating that. So I do think changing that could be constructive because the road is too narrow for two-way traffic, and you kind of have to go in between the parked cars if there are two ways there. But I would keep that separate from this development. I think we could bring that back to the board as an item.
Oh, yeah, definitely not part of this, but yeah, it's, you park on both sides of the roadways. Coca-Cola, if they park there, they need loading. It should be a one-way, something we look at to do, but not tonight.
Jonathan, I see your hand.
Hi, I'm a member of the public, so I
We'll
kind
get
of.
to you, ma'am. Hold on, ma'am. We're hearing from the board first. Jonathan,
Oh,
go
I'm
ahead,
sorry. I
please.
thought you asked for public comments. It took me a while to find the hand on my phone.
Sorry
Okay,
about
we'll
that.
get there.
I can't for some
Okay.
reason get this to unmute. Okay. So can I just get a process question answered from here? I thought the only time that the zoning board of appeals usurps our powers for 40B. Why are we just sending a letter and why are we not voting on the changes to the street?
I would say we're working through the process. This is kind of a new zoning that includes a different review process. You're correct. You could vote the regulations on the street yourself. You don't need the zoning board of appeals. But the mitigation, I think, is written as a condition for them, my understanding.
That's right, Dan. I think, Jonathan, what's happening here is we're going to the ZBA and the ZBA is going to put certain conditions on, and they want to include these conditions on that we have to comply with. Then I assume that we have to come back or whatever the process is for you to approve the crosswalks, that process has to take place.
Got it. Okay, so this is the first step of a three-step process.
That's the way I believe.
I understand now. Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions from the board? If not, Jane, we'd love to hear from you now, please.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So some of the neighbors' concerns, I think, too, are really the number of these units, the size of the units are going to really, and the fact that they're rented and they're furnished means that there's really going to be an awful lot of turnover of people. Even Bobby Allen mentioned that, how many people want to live for a long time in a micro unit or like a hotel room kind of size thing. And with that many people and that much people coming in and out, I think your loading zone is going to be very, very busy. I mean, I just live on Linden Street and in a two-family house. And between the two or three neighbors that I can see around me, there are really a lot of packages delivered every single day. So I think you're going to have a really lot of package deliveries. And I think this discussion about the one-wayness of the street is they're going to come in. They're going to get there from Kent Street. They're going to turn there onto Webster Place to be in that loading zone. And so you're going to have a lot of delivery trucks kind of moving through Webster Place. And I think that's where they should just be able to go one way and exit onto Harvard and not have traffic coming in, towards them from the parking lot there. So I think the amount of, there's just going to be a lot of delivery trucks and other traffic that already exists there. And I think that, it would be better if that was a one-way street. And I think you really, people are very concerned by the amount of traffic there's going to be there for deliveries and mail and stuff. It's not so much about the 23 cars that might be able to park underneath the building. It's about all the traffic for everyone ordering stuff that's going to be living there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the public transportation board members? Anyone? Proponents? Richard?
Just following up on Jane's
Richard, you're
comments.
unmuted already.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. No, just following up on the public comment from Jane. Not part of this project, but engineering should throw it on the list that there's a do not enter at the corner of Kent and Webster, but the opposite corner does not have a do not enter. So to reinforce that one way.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's no other comments, I think we've made some changes that will be incorporated, correct, Dan? With that, I think the suggested motion is to authorize me to provide a letter to the ZBA outlining the details of the questions, concerns, and recommendations of the board for the proposed 40 Kent Street development as we discussed tonight. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Right.
Can someone call the roll, please?
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Brian? Oh, good. Brian was a yes.
I'm a yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
And
Yes.
That's
Johnson.
unanimous, right?
Yes.
Jonathan, you voted yes. Okay, sorry. Now it's unanimous.
Thank you all for
All
your
right,
time.
thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Good
Good
luck with the
evening.
project.
Thank you.
We will move on to 5D, discussion on the CIP priority discussion from our retreat.
Okay, I just want to say a quick word and then I'll turn
Who
it
is
over
this
to Rob. It's gonna be Rob, but I'm just gonna say a quick thing, just quick thoughts about it. I thought it was a great retreat. Really looking forward to working with you and the subcommittees, regular milestones on all the capital improvement projects, and really getting full information out to everybody, and a good review, and so everyone's on the same page. And with that, I'll let Rob go.
Thanks, Dan. So yes, as was mentioned at last week's Transportation Board meeting, the Friday prior to last week, we had our retreat, and that was from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. We did it at the Brookline Teen Center. You can see the list of attendees that we had there, representatives from DPW, Transportation Board members, advisory committee members, town members, and we had 2 consultants to help us with facilitating the day. In terms of just a quick summary of what the purpose of the retreat was, really it was intended to help provide the Transportation Board and others with a clearer understanding of the town's adopted transportation policies, how those policies work together, the roles and responsibilities of the Transportation Board and the Public Works Department, and how all of us work together to set the capital improvement plan, the CIP, and the priorities shown in that CIP. DPW staff presented on those various transportation policies, of which they are Vision Zero, Complete Streets, traffic calming, parking and sidewalk and ramps, green routes. We talked about the roles and responsibilities of different stakeholders, including the Transportation Board, the Board Advisory Committees, and DPW staff. We provided a summary of different transportation project types and a description of those projects, of the current transportation projects. And then we also talked about methods that we as the staff are trying to use to prioritize transportation projects and the associated timelines. That includes the prioritization tool that we've talked about in prior meetings. The meeting included at the end an activity amongst all the participants to create draft CIPs, including their recommendations for implementation timelines. And I think it would be interesting just to show kind of what the results of that exercise were. So that workshop, in general, what participants tended to focus on were the early years and less on outer years, kind of reflecting that they wanted to prioritize things more in the beginning of the 5-year CIP. There were certain projects that among the various groups received almost universal support as high priorities and mentioned for early action, those being Lee and Clyde, Longwood Avenue, and programmatic safety improvements for traffic calming projects. And then there was limited consensus on several other projects, including Harvard Street, Chestnut Hill Avenue, St. Paul Street, Independence Avenue, Aspinwall Avenue, and programmatic improvements for pedestrian accessibility and bicycles. And you can kind of see on the right-hand side there, kind of an indication of with sticky notes and everything, how the participants indicated their priorities. This is a word cloud exercise that I thought was just kind of an interesting way to kind of show what bumped to the top for each of the years that the participants were mentioning which projects they were interested in and which years they were interested in seeing them. So you can kind of see for FY 2028, the first year of the CIP, we broke them down into planning and design and then construction. Under planning and design, you see that Lee and Clyde and Longwood were kind of mentioned by the most number of groups. But then traffic calming, Vision Zero, St. Paul were kind of that second tier. And then you can kind of see as you look to FY 29 how Lee and Clyde and Longwood moved over from planning and design to construction. Mentioned under FY 28 for construction, as the board has talked about in prior meetings, Harvard Street was certainly listed as many as the top priority. Looking over at FY 29, we saw that traffic calming was mentioned as kind of the biggest priority, but you can kind of see other streets were mentioned, sprinkled throughout that. As we move on into FY 30, you start to see things kind of spreading out a little bit more, fewer streets are mentioned more than others, but you're seeing a good diversity of streets that are mentioned. So in FY 30, you see the introduction of Independence Avenue and Newton Street kind of showing up on planning and design. You do see under FY 2030, following with the FY 29 planning and design, you see Lee and Clyde being mentioned for construction. And then moving to FY 31, Longwood Avenue pops up there. Another mention of Lee and Clyde, another group mentioned it at that time. And then you kind of see under construction, kind of following on with earlier planning and design projects, those being Independence Avenue, Park Street, Newton Street. Lee and Clyde gets another mention there, and Longwood Avenue. There was also, in terms of the discussion, a parking lot that was created and intended when people brought up topics that were really kind of not really considered as part of the day, but certainly were interesting and should be considered for a later discussion. Some of those ideas included questions about why some policies are funded at higher budget levels than others, and where do project ideas come from, asking for greater clarity on the project requirements based off of funding source, asking how do we evaluate the success of policies and projects, clarifying the difference between programs and projects in the CIP, and trying to get more clarity on what the role of pilot projects is. And finally, DPW staff will assess the feasibility of advancing projects on the timelines that were suggested. And as part of that, we'll, in looking at budget and looking at the construction season, we'll likely need to shift some projects from earlier years into later years. But I think everyone came away from the meeting feeling very positive about the projects that were mentioned, that those need to be the priorities. Now it's kind of up to DPW staff to think about where in the CIP timeline those fall. So I can kind of stop there, and certainly happy to answer any questions. If anybody on the board or anybody else that attended the retreat wants to offer their thoughts, certainly interested in hearing them.
Thanks, Rob. I agree. It was a very worthwhile endeavor and good data to think about this stuff. David, I see you. Hold on. A- Any transportation board member wish to comment before we hear from others? Nah, Wendy.
I just want to make an observation. Can you go back to the deck?
Of course. Is there a slide that you'd like me to show?
First, maybe your first slide, your summary of, yeah, no, go back. That one. So I just want to point out the limited consensus where you've listed Harvard Street. But actually, if you go to your next, Harvard, it looks from here, from this size of the font, that Harvard as a 2028 construction is equally high consensus as the other projects. I think it's not in planning and design because we're already in the middle of that. So I just wanted to understand why that was listed under kind of less consensus.
I believe that the three that are listed in the first three bullets, Lee and Clyde, Longwood Avenue, and programmatic safety improvements, the metric was that they were mentioned by every group. And anything that was listed in the second group are the streets and the programs that were listed by anything less than the totality of all groups.
Oh, I see. So the size of the font is not quite representative.
It's not, yeah, it's not relative. It all kind of depends on the number of words that are mentioned in each word cloud.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about Harvard Street.
Yeah.
You're right, Wendy. David, let's hear from you and then we'll hear from Richard.
So hi, David Trevette, Chair of Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and a participant in that retreat. The same thing I said before, at that retreat and other places, let's always be careful about overinterpretation of limited data that was not necessarily designed to produce what it's being interpreted as having produced. As I said at the meeting, what we at no point did we say, here are the 10 projects that have been essentially suggested to everybody in the room. Now decide to how you would lay that out across 5 years of work or 5 years of CIP. And so it's perfectly reasonable that if each table is asked to come up with just a few top projects, well, why would you, if these are our most important 3 projects, why would we want to slate them out at 2031 when we don't know what any other table is producing? So there should have been a 2-phase thing when we say, what are the projects that everybody's coming up with? Now, how do we lay them out? Among those 10 or 12 projects, now which ones do we want to tackle first and how do we scale? And understanding, in other words, we didn't really do the exercise of making those choices of laying out what comes first. And so, I caution against overinterpretation of from an exercise, which was a good exercise. It was a great retreat. It was good to get all these people together, but let's be careful about overinterpretation.
Thank you, David. Richard, go ahead, please.
David beat me to the punch. So I thought it was a good exercise, but I think that's where I'll rest it and not really kind of take anything as a priority over the other project. I think we need to either stick with the plan that we have, but definitely look to have some discussions. One small example is Lee and Clyde, which kind of came up a lot, but it's a roadway right now that doesn't need to be paved over, but we could look to exercise a possible road diet there to bring traffic calming. And whether that's something that construction wise we push off, where we can kind of concentrate on construction of priority roads that need it, but maybe be able to bring some safety to that roadway. And that's just my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. David, go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is David Krupp. I'm the president of Biking Brookline. I also participated in the retreat. I thought it was really great. It did give us a window into the type of decision-making and trade-offs DPW has to make. But like David and Richard, I wouldn't read too much into it. I think it's a good like first look. But it's important to remember we had about half an hour. I know for myself, we spent most of the time asking Sam Downs questions because we were confused, and we are confused, and we're still confused about a lot of things like, how much, how do you weigh traffic calming as a time-consuming task versus a project? And are all projects really the same? I mean, I feel there's been somewhat of a statement, well, we could do 2 constructions and 2 designs in a year, but like every project isn't the same. They're not all equal. There's some that are fairly light lift, and there are others that, like Washington Street, that, yeah, definitely is a major project. And I also was a little confused about Chestnut Hill Avenue because as far as I'm concerned, we've already done most of the work. I mean, we've had a lot of process. We've had consultants come up with a ton of designs. And so I was a little confused, like where that fit into things. So, I thought it was a great exercise, but I think we need to do more before we really know what the priorities are. Thank you.
Thanks, David. And I agree with you and David Trevette and Rich that this was a great first step, but it was just a first step, right? So like any, I think, good process, it dredged up a lot more questions. So I'm with you folks. I think it was a good process to generate questions, not necessarily not necessarily designed to come to any answers on that day. And I think that's where we're at. So what I think what we'll do with this information is take it and then try to work with the staff to formulate answers to some of those big questions so that we can continue to figure out how to drill down more and more and more and figure out where all the little levers are. Because I think at the end of the day, that's what we all want to find out. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay. That is not an action item, so we'll move on to, we're right on time. Hello, yeah. Presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding Chestnut Hill Avenue pavement maintenance and preservation plan project advancement. That's a mouthful, including the scope of pedestrian and bicycle improvements. It's all yours.
Thank you, sir. All right, so as was mentioned, Chestnut Hill Avenue was one of those projects that the people at the retreat mentioned. And we come to you tonight with kind of a representation of many of the options, all the options, in fact, that were presented at a prior meeting. But we felt like this was a good opportunity to present those in the context of some new options as well. So I wanted to start by talking about existing conditions, the different segments here, Cleveland Circle to Clinton Road to Dean Road to Buckminster, and Buckminster to Route 9. You can see here the driver average daily traffic, same for bike, same for walk, and the average pavement width, the roadway width is about 40 feet. Which gets down to 38 feet at some times, and the average lane width is 16 feet. Just some Google Street views of existing conditions. You can see the wide travel lanes, the wide shoulders, kind of how parking sometimes works, the condition of the roadway. These are things that certainly have been brought up in the past. As part of this work, DPW staff inventoried existing signage and signals, and this is a representation of what those signals and signage exist across the corridor. You can see there's a mixture of different uses here. We have bus stops along this corridor. There are different times when there are right turn lanes, no parking, various regulations that are throughout this corridor. So those are all things certainly that details that would need to be assessed as part of any further study upon what the plan is for Chestnut Hill Avenue. There are several sidewalk improvements that DPW staff have proposed at various times. These include pedestrian refuge islands and RRFBs, the rapid rectangular flashing beacons, one of which is being proposed for the existing Reservoir Station crosswalk. And very close to that is a new crosswalk that is proposed at Clinton Road with pedestrian refuge islands, a bump out, and an RRFB. One of the designs that was presented is shown here, but there are other designs. And as we move forward in this process, we would certainly work with the Transportation Board to finalize the final design at this and other locations. Various sidewalk improvements include new crosswalks with pedestrian refuge islands and the RRFBs at Buckminster Road and Hyslop Road. Also, these refuge islands and RRFBs were proposed for Ackers Avenue and at Elliott Street and Channing Road. I'm going to go into some cross sections right now. This right here presents the existing conditions. These are the standard 40-foot travel lane width. You see here the 16-foot travel lane widths and the 40-foot width of the roadway, I meant to say, with a 4-foot shoulder. Concept A that was advanced was to put protected bike lanes in both directions, protected with flex posts. This would narrow the travel lanes to 10.5 feet and eliminate parking on both sides of the roadway. Concept B widened the shoulder and had travel lanes narrowed to 12-foot travel lanes. The shoulder could be totally parking, or it could be shared with, or it could become bike accommodations there, but we need to figure out exactly how bikes and parkers obviously would work together, but it is the width of a standard parking lane. Concept C essentially keeps the narrow travel lanes and then has shared bike lanes and or intermittent parking again. This kind of shows how the bike lanes could work when you didn't have parking. Concept D, it's kind of a mixture of, it does provide bike lanes in both directions. And on one side, it's a narrow bike lane at 4.5 feet and a narrow buffer at 2 feet with a flex post. But it would be a parking protected bike lane. And then on the other side, you would have a travel lane, and the bike lane would be between the travel lane and the curb. But it would maintain parking on one side of the roadway and bike lanes in both directions. Concept E is one that I think was kind of shown in one of those street view pictures. It's where you could get parking on both sides of this, on the side of the street by having parked cars pull up onto the shoulder. And obviously working to do that in a safe way with the bike lane would be something that we would need to figure out. But the idea would be that at least for a portion of where the parking lane is, you would have protected bike lanes, and then you'd have protected bike lanes in the other direction. This is a summary of those 5 concepts. But as I mentioned, you've seen all these before. I just wanted to go through them very quickly in advance of presenting some new concepts on 2-way cycle tracks. So in terms of assessing a protected cycle track along Chestnut Hill Avenue, we asked our consultant, Apex, to prepare this analysis for us. And at a high level, the biggest question would be on a 2-way cycle track, whether to put it on the west side of the roadway or the east side of the roadway. And just some basic characteristics that on the west side of the roadway, given the curb cuts and everything, and driveways, there is the length for up to 105 parking spaces. Compare that with the east side, where there's the length for up to 117 parking spaces. That just indicates that there are more curb cuts on the west side than the east side. In terms of fire hydrants, there are more, 5 on the west side, 1 on the east side. And then on the west side, in terms of demand and activities that are attracting people, the west side has the ball fields that is probably something that we'd want to play into and think about when deciding where we would want to put the various uses here. Some other considerations is whether to put parking protected bike lanes on the same side as parking, or to put parking protected bike lanes and parking on different sides of the roadway. So putting them on the same side as parking, some of the benefits of doing that would be more protection for bicyclists. It does mean that people would have to cross the cycle track to enter and exit the parking lane. And that the opposite sidewalk, the one that doesn't have either the cycle track or the parking would be directly adjacent to moving traffic. And then the fourth bullet there is indicating that if you had parking as the same side as the cycle track, the two-way cycle track, the parking lane would be replaced by a floating island for bus platforms. Indeed, I think in terms of the bus service that goes along here, if you didn't have parking on the same side as the cycle track, it would create what the MBTA calls a constrained bus stop, where passengers would be boarding and alighting in not just a bike lane, but a two-way bike lane. And that certainly is a concern. That being said, opposite side of parking does provide more protection for pedestrians on both sides of the roads, but it does that at the expense of protection for bicyclists. The bike buffer being directly adjacent to moving traffic makes it more likely that flex posts could be damaged, and that might, in interest of avoiding flex post damage, Apex was recommending concrete curb protection. And as I mentioned, this would create a conflict between bus riders and the cycle track. Other characteristics that kind of affect the conversation about west side versus east side. So putting uses on the west side would allow access to the Roland Hayes Middle School and the ball fields. There are more driveway crossings, 24 in fact, along the west side. There are fewer intersection crossings, being 5. And there is certainly one of the things we have to think about, and this is a later slide here, is the intersection of Chestnut Hill Avenue with Route 9. Doing it on the west side would provide a shorter crossing at Route 9 and easier access to Heath Street and less direct access to Lee Street. Compare that with the east side that would have access to the Runkle Elementary School and in the Pierce Middle School. There are fewer driveway crossings on the east side, so 17 residential driveway crossings. And on the east side would be Reservoir Station, as certainly an important linkage. There are more intersection crossings, 6 on the east side versus 5 on the west side. And there is a longer crossing at Route 9, but easier access to Lee Street and less direct access to Heath Street. So talking about Route 9 in particular, this is a diagram of the existing crossings that exist at that intersection. So if the two-way cycle track was located on the west side, you see that there is that shorter crossing across Route 9, direct crossing to Heath Street, and that access to the Route 60 bus stop that's there. If the two-way cycle track was on the east side, you can see that there's a longer crossing distance, So you do get a direct crossing to Lee Street. And if you had to cross from the east to west side, that would involve two-stage crossing that would require both crossings. So here are the cross sections for the 4 combinations that we're talking about, those being where you would put parking and where you would put the two-way cycle track. So this one puts parking and cycle track both on the east side. You can see here that we would get a 9-foot cycle track width, 4.5-foot lanes in each direction, a 3-foot buffer with a flex post that would be buffered here by a 7-foot parking lane, and that would lead to 10.5-foot travel lanes. Here's a cross section where the cycle tracks would be on different side of the roadways than the parking. So we maintain that 9-foot cycle track and 3-foot buffer. Though, as Apex mentioned, maybe in this situation we might want to use protected curb to do that protection as opposed to flex posts. And then parking would be on the in this case the east side here between the sidewalk and the travel lane. This puts the parking protected bike lanes on the west side. Again, 9-foot cycle track, 3-foot buffer, 7-foot parking lane, and then 2 10.5-foot travel lanes. And then finally, there is splitting the two, but putting the parking on the west side and putting the cycle track on the east side. More information is available at the project website. We don't have these parking protected bike lane concepts on there yet, but I'm just thinking of that now. We certainly can get them up there first thing tomorrow. And any additional comments can be sent to transportation@brooklinema.gov. So happy to field any questions.
All right, thanks, Rob. I appreciate that. Before we begin the discussion, let me talk a little bit about how we got here. So folks might remember back in March, I asked us to pump the brakes on this one, given that at the time I had heard rumors that Boston was advancing its own project that might be able to connect to anything we were doing. And I thought it made sense to slow down until we heard from them. It's become clear since then that nothing's going to happen on the Boston side. And in fact, there might be a huge benefit to the Boston side to connect to something we're doing. So for that reason, I asked the staff to bring it back. It's also very clear that the board wants to move forward on some aspects of this. And so for that reason, I thought it made a lot of sense for us to bring it back. So Rob, thank you for all of the additional work and showing us all of the options. I guess my question is for you, Dan Murphy, perhaps. What exactly is it you are asking us to do tonight?
Well, there's a lot.
Do you want us to narrow down options? Do you want us to select an option?
Yeah, we're trying to get to something narrowed down at least. I know that the two-way is brand new to you, so I wanted you to digest that. We wanted you to digest that, think about it, and actually just some direction for us. We'd like to give the designer. We want to make some changes, look at different things. We want to have some sense of what to show, what to ask for.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to get a final action tonight, but I just wanted to put it all on the table, put the new options up, and kind of try to get some direction.
Okay. So, can we put? Can you show on the screen the memo that's attached to this item, please? Yeah, and scroll down. So, okay, right there. So, I guess I want to just briefly talk about the sidewalk improvements amongst the board. Just so we're all clear, pedestrian refuge island and RFBs at the existing crosswalk at the station, new crosswalk at Clinton Road, and there's diagrams of all of this in the attachments that we all received. So these items have been discussed. So Dan, are these more like ready to go if we give you the nod, or where are the sidewalk things?
Yeah, depending on, there are some things to think about. If this is a two-way cycle track, we'd have to think about the islands themselves and adjusting them to make sure that they fit. So it's a little tricky because without other options, unless we did something without the islands and just did the crossings themselves. I mean, the islands are a piece, but we would need to just, depending on what comes later, we'd hate to put something in and then have to change it based on a later decision because of the width of things and where things are going in the layout.
Okay, it's all related. And I do just want to note that we did receive feedback from the fire department about the proposal at Clinton Road, and you guys shared the auto turn drawings, and it looks like, was that ladder one or Quint one can make the turn safely?
I believe that's what they showed. I mean, we could take a second look, but that was the intent. Yep.
Yeah, Martin, I think you shared those, if memory serves.
Ladder one, and
Ladder one.
we would do similar exercises for the other locations once we have clear direction on how those can be laid out.
Okay. So I think then the work of the transportation board tonight is to kind of narrow down of these options that are listed A, B, C, D, E, and then the protected cycle track options, which I think there were 4 of them. We should probably try to narrow it down to no more than 3, 3 or 4. So with that, I guess thank you. Let's talk about it. Wendy, why don't you go ahead first?
I have a couple of questions. Can you just remind us, first of all, the current parking situation? Is parking legal on both sides, the whole length of the road right now?
Maybe the signage plan will show. I know it is in some locations.
In general, parking is legal on both sides of the road. As you get past Dean Road heading towards Chestnut, as you get past Dean Road on Chestnut Hill Ave heading towards Clinton Circle, it becomes permit parking only.
Okay. And then and my other question was, you all had done a parking counts, right? Before, like we have a sense of parking usage?
Yes. Yes.
Do you can you remind us just of the findings of that?
Yeah. I don't remember. Did we do formal counts, Dan, Martin?
Or just a couple spot counts that we had done in the office. It kind of confirmed parking is light in most areas. There's demand near the ball field and there's a game going on. But it wasn't, it was spot counts, wasn't it?
Okay, and so it was mostly around the ball field. Okay, thanks. I just needed to refresh my memory. Thanks.
That's what we heard at the public meeting that I had out at the school as well, is it's really ballpark driven.
Okay.
Nancy Moore, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was also going to ask about parking utilization, so thank you, Wendy, for bringing that up. I have 2 questions. One, the first is, are there relevant cost considerations in terms of these different options?
I think I'd say they're similar. We've except for the improvements to the sidewalks and the crossing islands, they certainly have cost. But as far as the bicycle options, the flex posts, some of it depends on spacing, and if there was a concrete element that adds a little more cost. But other than that, the curbs mostly set to remain in place. But we could certainly break those down.
Okay, yeah, I'd just be interested to know if there are any, obviously if there's minor cost, I don't think that's terribly significant, but if there's any major cost differentials between the options, I think that would be useful to know. My other question is, I'm not as familiar with the two-way cycle tracks. And my concern is when you put them opposite, or I guess what is it, on the same side as the parking, then anyone who wants to get in their car has to cross not only one, but a double. So it's 9 feet instead of, I know, when we have protected bike lanes, pedestrians already have to cross, a bike lane in order to get to their car. And we put up with that. But this is twice the distance. And I think for some people, seniors, anyone with disabilities who's not, in a handicap spot, crossing those two takes longer. People with limited, eyesight may not be as aware of the bicycles. I'm wondering, is there any, in terms of looking at towns that have these, is there any sort of consensus or general trend towards where to put them in relation to parking? Is there anything, or I don't know if there's any standards that apply, but I do think it would be useful to know what other towns that use these, how they deal with the parking issue, because I'm concerned that it's a safety issue for pedestrians who have to cross that double lane in order to get to their cars.
I'll just say we can certainly look for examples of where these types are in place and any issues that have arisen or the thoughts that went into it or feedback from them. I haven't dug into that at this point.
Yeah, I just want to say in general, I mean, I kind of like the idea of the double track because my experience, particularly on Comm Ave with BU, but also to some extent on Beacon Street, is that there's a lot of bicyclists going the wrong way. They don't want to bother to cross the street to get onto the right direction. And so if you have them on one side and they go both ways, then everybody's going to be going in the right lane. So, I see the appeal of having that, but I am concerned about the pedestrian crossing. That's all I have right now.
Thank you, Nancy. So we're going to hear from transportation board members, then we'll hear from our advisory folks, and then we'll hear from the public. So if you want to put your hands up, feel free. It's 8:45, so I'm going to ask folks to please be brief as well as brilliant. And I believe Richard Murphy was next.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I think first I'd like to clarify, Chestnut Hill Ave runs north and south. So when we were talking Warren Field side, it's the southbound side. So I want to be consistent in what we've been calling this roadway, and geographically that's how it aligns. It's slightly northwest. Anyway, but we're trying to modernize this roadway, make it safer, providing bicycle infrastructure and better pedestrian crossing. I'll reiterate what I've said before as far as there are Hayes and Runkle grammar schools kids who go to a particular school, even though their friends go to the opposite school, but their parents don't want them to cross Chestnut Hill Avenue. So pedestrian improvements are a must. As far as bicycle infrastructure, the one that makes sense, Nancy brought up a good point, but having the cycle track and comments I got today from Boston Transportation stated, I told them that we were looking at several options and mentioned that, we're considering looking at a cycle track. And the comment was, great to hear, definitely keep us posted. So I think, Brian, what you allude to is that we have an option here as far as Boston probably following us, even though they intend to seriously consider this cycle track from all the way from Quam Ave. It would be a great connection as far as connecting with Lee Street, which legally we can't drive bikes on Route 9. So the only crossing is on the south side of Route 9 as far as a bicyclist is concerned. So, and I'm not sure if Kevin Johnson is still here, but if we do the cycle track, it would have to be on one side of the roadway, and I'm recommending the southbound side, and that the parking would be along the northbound side. And one reason, additional reason, is trash collection. Casella's arm trucks can only reach 12 feet. So we're putting out their trash unless they wheel it out into the buffer lane, which could be problematic. That is something also for us to consider. The additional thing by having cycle track on one side and the parking on the other side is we can provide additional crosswalks with rapid flashing beacons when the funding is available, especially in that section between Warren and Route 9. The other thing that consider is the street trees along the roadways, the buses traveling along there in large trucks. If we have a vehicle traveling along the curbside, and it's tight for the sake that we have a cycle track parking, a parking lane, and then the two travel lanes are to one side of the roadway. We have trees in South Brookline on Grove Street that I see the bus swing out because they're avoiding a leaning tree into the roadway. So by having parking on one side of the roadway and a cycle track on the other one, kind of has a framework to the roadway. Vehicles traveling stay in the middle of the roadway. And that's my say for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Dylan or someone, can you put up the 5A Chestnut Hill Ave project advancement, and then scroll down to, I think it's slide number, oh, there's no numbers on these. 17, yeah, that one. So Richard, just so I'm clear, you said you prefer the south option for a cycle track? Okay, how does that map to this? Just so I'm clear in my own head, because if we start saying north and south and 1 and 2, I'm gonna get confused. You're muted, buddy.
Sorry, I forgot I muted myself. The blue represents the southbound side of Chestnut Hill Ave, and the red indicates the northbound side of Chestnut Hill Ave. Heading north heads into Cleveland Circle.
Okay,
So as
so
you come down, you meet with Route 9, where the red line is on Route 9. Technically, you can't ride a bike there. And also currently on Lee Street, there's only 50 feet of a bike lane at the intersection at Route 9. So the suggestion is being able to have the cycle track come down where the blue line is. They'd be able to use the crosswalk signal, right? Because you can't have a bike lane across the highway. So they would have to use the crosswalk signal, and then they would be able to connect with Lee Street extension there.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Jonathan, I think you were next. Jonathan, were you going to say something?
Yeah, sorry about that. I put down my hand and put it, whatever. So a couple questions and then a statement. So the lane widths that are shown on the different options, as I flipped through the roll plan portion, the lane widths seem to change a lot, especially at the intersections. And I'm curious why at the highest conflict locations we're providing the largest lane widths for vehicles, where in the other sections we're providing 10.5 feet in many of these. And I'm also curious why in any of these concepts we're not always showing 10.5 feet. If it's good enough for Harvard Street, it's good enough for Chestnut Hill Avenue.
I think we narrowed down to a single, a lane width all the way throughout. For the
Okay.
town plan.
Okay, so that's just so the roll plan graphic is just kind of is older and
Yeah.
it needs update. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
we'll update
Good,
it.
yeah, gotcha. Okay. So in regards to the protected cycle track options, I think they are a great idea in the long term. I don't want to discount anyone's feelings towards them. They make a lot of sense for this particular roadway in the long term. I think there are logistical reasons why trying to do something like this in the short term, particularly because of traffic signals, but also because of how it ties into Chestnut Hill Avenue and Route 9, will make this very difficult and will add additional cost to the project. After that, I think concept C, not saying it should be the one, but I find the idea of it to be kind of an interesting experiment in the sense that it will help us really determine what kind of parking is really occurring out there for the long term. So just the thought there on that.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. Wendy.
So I guess to voice my preference, I really like the two-way cycle track. I understand what Jonathan's saying about the complication with the signals, particularly at Route 9. Can you go back to that Boylston Street diagram? Yeah, I don't really understand the red one, given that it puts a crossing, like if that's a cyclist going over, they're on the wrong side they're going against traffic when they cross. So I don't really understand what happens. I guess you cross at the light there and come back to the other side of Lee Street, but that doesn't seem like I don't really understand that crossing, I guess. Having said that, I guess my kind of initial reaction is, other than this, I like the idea of the two-way track being on the northbound / east side of the street. And that's because with the parking on the other side, and that's mostly because of the ball field and being concerned that people are pulling up and parking at the ball field, kids get out of the car and then they have to get across the street. And can you actually go to that area so we can see what the pedestrian crossings are there?
Yeah.
Who's driving the deck?
Is that you, Dylan?
Rob is.
Looks like there's crossings. Okay, you got it. Are you asking about existing conditions, Wendy, or about?
No, what is going to be happening there?
Okay.
So right now on this, there's just one crosswalk.
There's a crosswalk there. Yeah.
Oh, and one at the corner. So yeah, I mean, I think people are going to be running across the street to the ball fields if the parking is on the northbound side, which makes me prefer having the parking on the southbound side and the two-way cycle track on the northbound side. Except for that we'd have to work out the Route 9 issue. But
so Rob, sorry, Wendy, I want to get the right visual up. Rob, can you put up the deck and go to slide 6? I think this is what you were looking for, Wendy, what the plans are. So this is
High Slop is
field,
right?
So, and then go down, Rob, go down to 7. So High Slop is sort of near the ball field, and then this
Okay,
is
so
what
there's the
we'd
deal.
get at
Yeah, yeah.
Ackers.
Right, so any parking that's kind of north of that crosswalk, people are probably gonna be running across the street.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, so I guess my first point is I really like the two-way cycle track. That would be my preferred design, and then with parking on the opposite side. And because of this, my preference would be for the cycle track to be on the northbound side.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'll just say one, if I can say one more thing.
Sure,
So
please, sorry.
yeah, no, that was my delayed thought. In terms of, yeah, I guess I don't really, I'm not convinced by the sort of need or the benefit of the parking protected bike lane if there's going to be flex posts or, and potentially a raised, divider or something, which I think would be great. It'd be great to have a raised divider. It's a wide area, so shouldn't be a problem in terms of snow removal. So we can do things to protect that. I don't think it needs the added protection of parking. As Nancy said, it increases the amount of sort of conflict with people getting out of their cars, but also this crossing of pedestrians. It's a much longer crossing across both car and two-way cycle track. And also we'd have to design for sight lines for the cyclists to be able to, to be seen for cars that are turning across the cycle track. So I don't see anything that's that convincing or compelling about having them on the same side of the street.
Okay. Thank you. Nancy, I think you're up.
I just wondered if staff could respond to Jonathan's concern about turn lanes and cycle tracks. I mean, he suggested that made it a particularly difficult design. I'm curious what staff's reaction to that is.
I think that's you, Dan Murphy.
He's asking about the two-way cycle track being complicated with the turn lanes.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that a significant concern?
I guess I got to think about it. I haven't given it a ton of thought, honestly. But it's certainly having the two-way and then with the turn lanes. I guess it's all a matter of sight. And it is a two-way on a busy road, a two-way cycle track. You'd have to certainly consider sight lines of everybody and making sure that everybody understood what was on the street and drivers knew it. But I'd have to give it a little more thought. Maybe if staff might have another thought or two, if Rob or Dan has anything else.
Well, there's lots of literature on this that I'd be happy to share with you,
Yep.
Nancy, if you want to read up about it.
Yep.
NACTO's done a ton of work on this, as has TRB. So
Yep.
There's always trade-offs with everything. And yes, that's a concern, is turns. But you have to weigh that against other potential benefits or potential downfalls. So
And we can definitely share the NACTO stuff. We've got
I'll
the guides. Yep. Sorry.
Cool. Thank you. All right, Richard, second time, Richard, then we got to hear from the public. Did you lower your hand, Richard? Or did you want to say something?
You guys have me muted. You can hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, so just want to clarify on both ends, both Route 9 and Cleveland Circle. So Boston says their delay in part is due to the MBTA wanting to change tracks. They're looking to reduce tracks, and that is part of their delay process. If their intention is to have the cycle track, it would be on the south side, which would make sense as far as connecting with Route 9. And then the discussion about Route 9 is not having a per se bike lane, because we can't have a bike lane going across Route 9. a bicyclist, whether it's on both sides of the roadway or if it's a cycle track, they get to Route 9, they have to use the signal crossings like a pedestrian to get to the other side of the roadway. And then connecting with the Lee Street extension, which is that small little side road. So just want to clarify those. And the additional thing with having parking on one side, cycle track on the other side, is that the pedestrian crossing is that much shorter. Instead of having to walk across 40 feet as they do today, it's reduced to 22 to 20 feet of pedestrian crossing as far as dealing with the vehicle lanes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will now hear from David Trevette. And again, folks, it's 9 o'clock. I'm going to beg you to please be as brief as you can.
Okay, thank you, Brian. David Trevette, Chair of Pedestrian Advisory Committee, speaking for myself. First of all, I want to echo what a point Richard was making earlier about pedestrian crossings, really important pedestrian safety up and down this busy road. It hasn't been mentioned much, but certainly the reconfiguring of the Clinton Road intersection is incredibly important, narrowing these overly long crossings during which pedestrians are significantly exposed to traffic. So all those are really good. I think it's really important to hear back after a while from Dan Murphy and the engineering staff as to whether, in fact, the pedestrian islands can survive in a two-way a cycle track design. That is absolutely not clear to me. My bet is that those islands do not survive with a two-way cycle track, but maybe I'm wrong on that. So that would be important for me to think about how I feel about the design. I wanted to come back to what may be a minor detail and get clarification from Dan Martin on the business about current parking along Chestnut Avenue. My understanding is that one side of the street does not have a parking lane, or at least not a official width parking lane, and yet people park along it, partly, either partly up on the curb, partly into the travel lane. I know that I had checked because we ran into a similar issue on Elliott. And is this a violation or not? And I checked with the police department. And basically, to the extent to which the car extends into the travel lane to block the travel lane, that's a violation. Now, when you have a 16-foot wide travel lane, it's not going to be significantly blocking. A traveling car can go past that parked car sticking into it. As soon as you narrow the travel lane, the situation changes. And then a car parking along there is actually blocking the lane. That's a violation. So it's not clear to me that there is, official allowed parking, even though there's no enforcement up along there. So I just want to be clarified when Wendy asked, is there, whether or Nancy, is there parking on both sides of the street? People do park on both sides of the street, but whether there are appropriate parking lanes on both sides, I think that's a separate question. So thanks very much.
Thank you, David. Jesse Hefter or Brenda Hefter, go ahead, please.
Hi. Just before Brenda starts, Brian, 2 quick comments. One is that none of this material was provided in the meeting materials at all. And especially this new idea about the two-way cycle track was dropped on the group this evening only, with no ability of anyone to really consider its impacts and to think about what the repercussions might be as well. There were items in Rob's presentation also not necessarily accurate with what we were presented at the Hayes School meeting nor at the prior meeting. Just wanted to point that out. Brenda's going to take over.
Thanks.
Hi, Brenda Hefter here. And again, I speak as a resident, and I have spent an enormous amount of time on the street, outside my house, and I have different impressions about the traffic, which I'd like to share. Okay, I think there's a lot of exaggeration. For example, the number of crashes that occur on Chestnut Avenue. We went into the DOT, and there are not the number that people think this is a regular speedway. They're speeding all the time in Brookline. There's no question about it. There is a certain amount of Chestnut Avenue, but there's times when it's not, and particularly when it is like beginning of the day, end of the day, weekends, it's just not the speedway everybody thinks it is. There are days when there are construction trucks, delivery trucks, utilities, and there are a lot of cars on the street. And then there are other days when they're not. So I find it ironic that either you say there's a lot of people parking here, or if there's not a lot of people, as somebody said, then you should be free to use the lanes to bicycle. And there are people who are bicycling and they wave to us. So I don't understand the necessity to impact our lives, those of us who need to park in front of our homes. We need the resident parking. And if you want to park on the other side of the street, I'm going to carry my bundles and I'm a little over 65. And if I'm walking with children, I'm going to have to cross Chestnut Avenue, 2 lanes of traffic to get to my house, or the other way with my family on the other side. The other thing is the police reports at the Bicycle Advisory Committee meetings don't show any incidents of bike accidents on Chestnut Avenue. This is in addition to the car crash reports, okay? And the 2-way cycle track, it's absurd to have to cross over again from the other side of the street, those of us, again, who live here. And we were told over 2 years ago, more, possibly 3, when all of this started, that yes, you can park on Chestnut Hill Avenue on both sides. You're right, there's more room on one side than on the other, but definitely was allowed. This has been raised many times. I'm just asking the Transportation Board to think about the residents living here. And we keep coming to meetings, we keep writing letters, we keep calling, just to take us into consideration. Those of us who are in shared driveways, narrow driveways, and have real life on this street. That's all.
I'll also just finally point out, Brian, that the numbers that Rob shows are not realistic at all. In days when we sit out there and count the traffic, there's no way there are 100 bicycles a day going by the street. Those few that do every day may do it for recreational purposes, like on a single project of having, 10, 15 bikers together. Very, very rare. Incidences of bicycles and cars getting into any kind of issues, very, very rare. Incidents of bicyclists driving the wrong way on each side of the street, very, very rare. Beacon Street, as Nancy points out, they do whatever they want. Incidences on Chestnut Avenue of bicyclists ignoring traffic signals, very, very rare, because there are few traffic signals, and the bicyclists who do use the fog line lane are generally pretty good about keeping their speed up, about moving up onto the sidewalk if they see construction vehicles, landscape vehicles, moving trucks, any other kind of parking that's required on both sides of the street for the residents. Significant number of the spaces that Rob counts are in impossible locations, so they're definitely wrong. The number of people who have behind parking, one by one in a narrow lane, have to leave their cars out. That's on the side of the street in which they live. That's a legal parking space. I cannot count the number of times that different folks on this call and prior have just stated mythical information. Amy Ingalls was one who had to retract it, that parking is allowed on either side of the street for 2 hours per Brookline rules unless a resident complains to the police about someone spending more of that time. And it's time tonight, Brian, that people stop lying about the facts. We've heard it over and over, meeting after meeting, that the street is not safe for bicyclists. That is an untrue statement. There is no evidence that it is risky for bicyclists on Chestnut Hill Avenue any more than some of the other streets without flex posts or anything else. It's time we stop talking about the fact, as David Treved mentioned, that he's not sure if parking is legal. That is a
Jesse, you've been talking for 8 minutes now. I know this is important, but I really need you to conclude.
I've concluded.
Thank you very much. So folks, there's 2 folks there. They spoke for 8 minutes. So if you go more than 4 minutes, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off. We do need to try to get this item dealt with, or at least began tonight. So thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Brenda. I appreciate your on the street, literally, information. Jennifer Klein, I believe you were next.
Yes, okay. I come to this from a bike commuter perspective. I live in South Brookline and my office is in Coolidge Corner. And I've been a bike commuter for 50 years, and I actually think I agree that I think most of this infrastructure stuff is useless. I feel like you don't need the bike lanes and the flex posts and the raised this and that. I think it's working fine the way it is. I think the 2 most important safety issues with bicycling are road surface and street sweeping. So that I think if the bike lane, so the biggest problem to me for Chestnut Hill Avenue is it is unrideable because it needs to be repaved. And the problem with flex posts, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure, but I think if you put flex posts, the street sweepers can't get at the bike lane. If you've got a bike lane that's protected, but got sticks and rocks all over it, it's not going to be safe. So my two questions are, can it be repaved before all of the rest of this garbage is decided? Because repaving would make it 1,000% safer right away. And do the flex posts prevent the street sweepers from cleaning the bike lane? Those are my two questions.
Ms. Klein, please refrain from referring to things we're discussing as garbage. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. You're right. I do get frustrated, and I really do. It's that when I ride on that bike surface, I'm bumping up and down, and I'm just saying, dear God, please, please, please repave this road. That's all I can think when I'm riding it.
Dan Martin, you can correct me if I'm wrong. All of this is part of a repaving project. Is that correct, Dan?
This is part of the Chestnut Hill Ave paving maintenance program.
But what
This
I'm
is like
saying,
add-on to it.
without using the word garbage, can it be repaved without all of these other issues being decided, is my question.
Yes, yes.
That would be awesome.
It will be repaved. The question is, what will it be put back
Okay.
as?
Okay. But please, I'm pleading, please repave it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Kevin, I see you raise your hand. You want to tell me what I'm saying is wrong?
No, you're not saying anything wrong, but I just want to clarify. There is funding to redo Chestnut Hill Ave. Obviously, we all know the reason why it's not in construction yet is due to the trying to figure out the exact bike lane, pedestrian safety issues before. So paving it prior to any of this decisions being made would be, as they say, putting the horse in front of the cart. So I think a lot of these decisions need to be made before we even want to attempt to pave it, to repave it. And while I just want to clarify Mr. Murphy's statement about the 12-foot arm. Yes, we always have to consider how far away these barrels will be from the curb when we're considering these cycle tracks as well.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Okay, Ms. Klein, we heard from you. Andy Fisher, I believe you're next. And again, folks, please, 4 minutes, please. Go ahead, Andy. Okay, Andy, I'm going to come back to you after we hear from Paul Sainer. Go ahead, Paul, if you don't mind.
Thank you very much, Brian. A few comments and then a question. First of all, I want to thank staff for their ongoing commitment to significantly reduce the unsafe width of the east side of Clinton Road and Chestnut Hill Ave. I've lived very near there for 38 years, and it's extraordinarily unsafe for anyone, especially someone with my disability. Secondly, I'm in favor of bike tracks both ways, the length of the avenue, and I'm very much in favor of traffic calming. I'm not wild about the potential of traffic immediately abutting the sidewalk on either side of the street, especially near our house where the hill is steep and there's a significant curve. My question is, why are we talking about any parking north of Dean Road, permit parking only? Several of us know why that's the case historically. There is no parking whatsoever on a practical basis along this stretch, and every house except one is on a corner. So for drop-offs, it's not necessary to be on the avenue. So I just wanted to ask why that's even on the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. Andy, go ahead, please.
Am I being heard now?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank the staff
for hearing the, for hearing us in precinct 13, half of Route 9, of Chestnut Hill Avenue, that's in Brookline is in precinct 13, and the precinct 13 town meeting members speaking for the precinct is strongly in favor of the kind of plans that we're getting responses to. I think the thoughtful approach to crossing Chestnut Hill Avenue makes a lot of sense. The cutting the bike path or the bike lane to where the traffic light is at Lee Street just makes a lot of sense. It allows for a safe crossing in what's a very dangerous situation. And I appreciate the effort that's going to resolving those kind of conflicts. I also want to thank you, Brian, for the mantra that you give us about coordinating with Boston. There was a very interesting presentation on Cleveland Circle yesterday and their plans for making it safer for everyone. And the mention was made about but a two-way bike path on the southbound side. And I appreciate the how difficult it is to coordinate with different organizations, and appreciate the work that's done and the necessity of proper coordination. I would say I'll leave it at that. Just thank you for all.
Thanks, Andy. David Schriebler, sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly. There's no L, sorry.
Yeah, it's Schreiber. Yeah, what I was going to suggest, because yes, the intersection with Clinton is a terror and has to be fixed. But I think one of the solutions to the intersection at the other end at Route 9 would be an all-way stop for a walk crossing, not just for pedestrians, but for cyclists as well. So that whichever side of Chestnut Hill Ave is turned into bike lanes, either or both, it's still possible to cross either to Heath or to Lee directly across Route 9 if the turning traffic can be stopped as well as the crossing traffic. What we used to call in New York City a barn stance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Benjamin, go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm Benjamin. I live on Chestnut Hill Ave. I'm a bike commuter, so bike on Chestnut Hill Ave every day. I first want to start with I really appreciate all of the care and consideration that's gone into these plans. I think there's a lot of good merit to them. I do think that the two-way kind of bike lane on one side can strike the compromise between having road width for bike lanes protected in both directions and traffic. I think three comments I want to make. One is the pedestrian islands. I know they're not controversial, but like we got to have them, especially at the Reservoir T crossing. The Reservoir T crossing already got the rapid flashers, and that has already been a huge improvement that happened like 3 weeks ago. So thank you for that. Would still love to have a pedestrian island. Still almost got hit by a car that didn't see them with one of my young kids like a week ago. I also really, I think this has already been kind of the general consensus. If we're going to do the two-way bike lane on one side of the road, I think the parking should be on the other side. And part of that is just to have more buffer for the sidewalk. As somebody with small kids who lives on the street, I'd want that buffer kind of no matter which side of the street I'm on. Because it is still a busy thoroughfare, even with the traffic calming that I think is important. I think the third thing is I do want to agree with the, one of the community statements that was made, which is the I think it is also still worth considering giving Chestnut Hill Ave different treatments, kind of north and south of either Dean or Buckminster, exactly where that line is, because the street looks very different, north and south of that. So, kind of between either Buckminster and Dean and Cleveland Circle, there's really not much need for parking. The houses in that section have generally substantial off-street parking, and there's a lot more cross streets. So I think something like option A, which is just bike lanes, no parking for that section between like either Dean and Buckminster and Cleveland Circle, could make a lot of sense. Although how to transition from bike lanes on both sides to a two-way cycle track can be a bit challenging. Anyways, just wanted to give that input, but love the options. And thanks for all your work on this.
Thank you very much. Jonathan Fine, go ahead, please.
Yes, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. Reason that I'm speaking is it's not directly involves Chestnut Hill Avenue, but it's very much related. The traffic on Elliott Street, when construction starts on Chestnut Hill Avenue, the cars are going to try to avoid the construction by coming down Clinton Road to Elliott Street. And at the intersection of Clinton Road and Elliott is the beginning between that intersection and Cleveland Road, and then from Cleveland Road to Dean Road, are two stretches of straight road, and the cars go very often just speed right down there. They get to the intersection and they just floor it. And I would urge the Transportation Board to seriously consider placing traffic calming on those two blocks. It's my understanding it's being under consideration between Dean and Route 9 near the school. And I think that the board should give serious consideration to adding traffic calming between the intersection of Clinton and Elliott down to Cleveland, and then Cleveland to Dean. There are several young children here, and the cars just floor it. And it's only going to get worse when construction starts.
Thank you, Mr. Fine. Emily Jacobson, go ahead, please.
Hi, thank you. Emily Jacobson, Chair of the Bicycle Advisory Committee, counting the hours. I just want to remark back to the fact that the Bicycle Advisory Committee wrote a memo to the Transportation Board a year ago about this. And I can't do full justice to the memo, but the memo that was that there were a lot of different options to make protected bike lanes on Chestnut Hill Avenue. And I think you can see that tonight. There are just really a lot of options to make a compromise between all the road users so that everybody can have a bit of what they want. And now I'm just going to make a personal remark. We brought up the idea of a two-way cycle track at the time of the Bicycle Advisory Committee. And at the time we were told that there was going to be an issue with the signal at Dean Road, that there wasn't money in the budget to do that. And I did some thinking about this in the intervening year. And with respect to what Mr. Kappas said, that there are some intersections that would require some thought and some difficulty. I really hope that the board would consider doing 95% of what would be a really good thing, and what a lot of people would like to have. I think a lot of people would like to have on Chestnut Hill Avenue, which is a two-way cycle track. And if there isn't money in the budget to make a bicycle signal at Dean Road, well, put in something that says cyclists dismount and cross with a pedestrian signal. And I'm absolutely not speaking for the Bicycle Advisory Committee when I say this, but take that back to them, see what they think. If they would rather have a great solution for 95% of the road and you deal with the tricky bits in a road project afterwards, or whether they would prefer something else. But anyway, there are a lot of good options here. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Brad Lassie, please.
Hey, well, thanks. Brad Lassie. I live on Penman Road, which is one block off of Chestnut Ave.
back when we first started talking about this, I biked on Chestnut Ave every weekday to bring my two of my kids to the Winch Center in a bike trailer. It was at times a harrowing experience. Traffic is certainly going too fast, especially with the big trucks. Now, all three are completing their year at Hayes, so it's been a while. We had a PTO meeting on this subject a while back, and there were several people in the meeting were sharing stories of the dangers of crossing Chestnut Ave. The common thread of a lot of the stories were, I think they're called double crossings. Effectively, one car stops for the person in the crosswalk, and then they start to proceed through, and another car goes around it, and doesn't see the pedestrian until they're right on top of them. So for that reason, I think it's really important to physically narrow the travel lanes along Chestnut Ave for cars to prevent those double crossings. I've certainly had my share of close encounters with those, both crossing at the Reservoir T-stop and also walking my boys up to Fisher Hill, crossing a high stop. We had one incident where a car stopped to let us go, and one of the cars behind them went around into the buffer zone. I had to yell at one of my boys to stop, get back on the sidewalk as they zoomed by. It was harrowing and scary. Another set of stories that came out in that PTO meeting were friends of friends and other families that were known to have chosen Runkle over Hayes due to that dangerous crossing. And so it's something I think was raised earlier. One thing I made a suggestion a while back of moving the mid-block crossing for the T-stop back from a mid-block crossing to Clinton Road to avoid those two potential lanes of cars going in the same direction to crossing the crosswalk, but still allow for 2 lanes of traffic to queue up at that light, which I think is something that folks have been concerned about. One thing that it was asked earlier, if what other towns have done for 2-way cycle tracks and parking. One that I'm aware of, and I just checked on Google Maps, the 2-way cycle track in Harvard Square has parking on the same side as the cycle track. So that is something that we might want to check with Cambridge, what their experience has been with that. I'll also note, having some experience biking in those cycle tracks, when people cross into them, having the additional space of the two-way cycle track gives the cyclist room to maneuver and avoid folks or pedestrians who aren't pay attention, which happens on a somewhat regular basis. I want to say I appreciate the creativity the staff has shown. Option E, I find particularly interesting. I know it hasn't been loved by a lot of people, but I think it's an interesting proposal, especially given the relative lack of parking on consistent parking, I should say, on Chestnut Ave. And one other consideration, if a two-way cycle track was on the Hayes side of it, or the southbound side of Chestnut Ave, that would avoid the cyclists having to go over the embedded train tracks down into as it connects into Cleveland Circle, which is it's a crash I've had twice in my time biking around the Green Line. And another consideration would be you could have the side of the parking alternate depending on the conditions of road. So it could be next to this two-way cycle track where it's near the ball field, but on the other side on other parts of Chestnut Ave. Anyway, again, I want to thank the staff for all the work on this. I know it's been a tough slog at times. Thanks.
Thank you. David, go ahead, please.
Did you say David?
David Crook, go ahead, please.
Oh, okay, thank you. My name is David Crook. I'm the president of Biking Brookline. Thank you very much to DPW for bringing forward these two-way cycle track ideas. I think they're really good and they solve a lot of problems. They do allow parking on one side. They also will make snow clearance very easy. So although, I respect Jonathan's concern about timing, I guess I think we really should get more data or more information from DPW and our consultants as to what it would entail to do this so we can compare it with the I would view inferior narrow bike lane on one side, the 4.5-foot bike lane, and the unbuffered bike lane on the other. I do know Biking Brookline was very involved in the Boston University Bridge improvements, which many people have seen. And a critical component of that was changing the timing of all the signals. And it was more complicated than here, I think, because there were many jurisdictions involved. So I guess my main request is let's get some more information so we can really compare what these would entail. In terms of like the parking, I think as Paul said, it's very clear it's illegal to park now between Dean Road and Cleveland Circle. And Jesse, I don't know if you've ever looked at the town's parking regulations, but basically the parking that's been going on is illegal. That doesn't mean the road couldn't be changed to make it legal, but just it is clear the way people have been parking is illegal. But I think the more important thing is that there are only about 4 or 5 cars parked on the road at any time, which suggests there really isn't much demand, which isn't surprising because all these homes have private driveways. I would say, though, I do have the concern about this idea of what I call the non-bike bike lane. I think it's option C, where you create parking and say, oh, but you can use it if you're on a bike, but just remember, don't call it a bike lane. And of course, the reason why you're saying that is because it's illegal to stop, stand, or park in a bike lane. And I really don't, there's a reason for that. And I don't think you solve that reason by calling it a non-bike bike lane. It is a parking lane, which means it's not a bike lane. In terms of the safety, I think this evening really illustrates why we cannot let these processes go on and on and on. We've heard the same thing now, a year later, that we heard a year ago. The bikes are perfectly safe just the way they are. All this biking infrastructure is stupid, or I forgot the word that was used, garbage. There are standards out there that tell us what is safe, NACTU, MassDOT, and other guidelines. And when seatbelts first were introduced, a lot of people said they're stupid and they make you less safe. But we went with the data, and now it's illegal to drive without a seatbelt. And in terms of pedestrian safety, I think the data shows when you put in bike lanes, it slows down traffic. And when you slow down traffic, you make pedestrians safer. And I really don't see why a motorist getting out of a car is more endangered when he steps into a bike lane as he is when he steps into a motor lane, when he parks on a street that doesn't have a bike lane. And then my final point is just, I hope you'll consider that there could be different solutions for different parts of the street, even at Warren Field, where there are no trees in the tree pit. I mean, you could maybe create a temporary type of parking lane right in the tree pit so people could park on that side, but you'd still have enough room for the bike lane. Those are all my comments. Thank you very much for hearing my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, David. John Zoll, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
Jonathan Zoll, School Advisory Committee member. Yeah, I prefer the cycle track. It probably southbound I think would be better, just because that's what Boston's planning on doing, shorter crossing as well. I mean, my own personally, I feel like I'd instinctively want to go north side, but I think just a lot of the data and other things like that make me feel like south side's better. But yeah, overall, I think we can't really go with the option of the hybrid lane where it's parking and bikes, because then anytime there's a car, a bike then has to go into the lane of traffic, and cars are not necessarily expecting that. And it's an intimidating road. It's one that I've gone on Chestnut Hill Avenue, mostly on the Boston side. I generally haven't gone through on Brookline, partially because it's a road that I have driven on, and I know it's a higher speed road and one that I'm not necessarily comfortable going on in a more vulnerable position. And also, I do like the idea of the of when you get to Route 9, if there could be a pedestrian scramble. I'm always a fan of pedestrian scrambles and just making it a safer crossing, and that would provide options for either the north side or south side. And I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Mr. Zoll. Shira Hefter, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I guess I'll try to be brief and maybe I'll just follow up with the board with an email, but I guess I'm just a little bit confused. It seemed like the process last year was engaging residents a lot more. And now it feels like this is like advocacy groups got in and now we're going in like a very different direction. Residents at multiple meetings had spoken about differentiating between like Dean Road and Cleveland Circle versus Dean Road, Buckminster and Cleveland Circle, and that seems to have dropped, which as a resident between Dean Road and Route 9 is disappointing and kind of frustrating. And so I guess I'm curious what plans there are to continue to engage with the residents who do use the street. Yes, we have driveways, a lot of them are tandem, and it is essential often to have at least some curb access. And it feels like most of these plans get rid of curb access on both sides. There is parking for, I don't know, all variety of rideshare, deliveries, landscapers, construction workers. There've been multiple houses with construction going on, and there've been tons of parking and trucks on both sides of the street. So I'm just curious how that would work with any of these plans. What happens when there's either it's a bike lane or a cycle track or any of these things? Where do vendors park when they need to come? Where does an ambulance park? Where does a fire truck park? So I'd be curious to learn a little bit more about that. Where do you drop somebody off? Where do you pick people up? How do you back into your driveway? I feel like there's a lot of logistics that have been glossed over, but also that have been dropped. And I'm a little concerned about like just how this process is going now, because it feels like it's veered off in a very, very different direction. And then the last thing I'll say is just, I don't know who it was that said something about comparing Chestnut Hill Avenue to Harvard Street. I'm not sure why we would compare those two. Chestnut Hill Avenue is a residential street. Harvard Street is largely commercial. I'm sure there's more nuance there, but I would really just encourage you to continue to consider Chestnut Hill Avenue as both a pass through, which it is, but also a street where people live, and really kind of thinking about our own daily quality of life. So thank you.
Thank you. Toby Silman, go ahead, please.
All right. Thank you for doing this discussion tonight. It was my birthday last night, so this is somewhat of a belated birthday present. I'm a bicycle advisory committee member and an avid bicyclist. When I was on the BHS tennis team, which was 2 years ago, I believe, I biked to tennis at the Warren Field courts multiple times a week. I was often alone, and that wasn't because nobody else wanted to bike. That was because the road design explicitly discouraged it. So if we get this design right now, we'll make it safer for all sorts of students like me from BHS, Hayes, Runkle, and elsewhere to bike to school, to sports practices, or just for fun. And as a bicyclist, I've had the privilege to observe just about every type of bike lane design all over the Boston area. You've got two-way bike paths doing wonders for safety in Harvard Square on Brattle Street, by MIT, on Ames Street, Huron Ave, also City Hall in Boston. I'm sure there are others. I could go on, but I won't. And I just wanted to bring up what I don't believe has been brought up, which is that in Boston, they just announced major safety upgrades to the Chestnut Hill portion of Beacon Street by BC. So you are going to be seeing much higher demand for bicycling in this area, particularly once the Beacon Street bridle path is complete, whenever that happens. And this will eventually function as part of a complete streets network. So I just wanted to conclude with the fact that we have to catch up on Chestnut Hill Ave. We have to catch up to what Boston, Cambridge, and Somerville are doing. So we have to do that by approving the two-way cycle track, because none of the other designs, in my opinion, are up to code with regard to Vision Zero, complete streets, all these other guidelines. So let's get to work on a design that works for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Toby. Okay, last call for public comments. Okay, we'll close the public comment period. Thank you, everybody. Let me just respond globally to a couple of things. So this discussion tonight is about giving staff and our designers direction so that they can go, and instead of coming back with, I think right now we have something like 12 options, we can come back with a smaller number that will allow us to go talk to more people about potential solutions or potential treatments with more specific plans in hand. So all of the comments about, well, we don't know what this is, or what about this, what about this? You're right. You're absolutely right. And that's why we have to do this work. But we can't, it's not efficient or smart for us to tell the designers to go design 12 concepts. And yes, this is an iterative process. So we're not going to have fully baked everything to come with you, to bring to you, to bring to everybody all the time. We're going to do the best we can and iterate based on the feedback that we're getting, which is what we have done throughout this process. So, you know, I often hear folks that don't like, well, anyway, I'll leave it at that. Let's turn back to the transportation board. And my colleagues, if they're still with us, which I hope they are, we are asked to narrow some of these options down, understanding that the sort of options that we ask to be moved forward will affect potential pedestrian treatments as well. I liked hearing about sort of alternating treatments based on the side of the road. I think that's something that our designers are pretty smart and can figure out. And so I guess I'd like to suggest, I'd like to suggest that we consider, here's what I think we should do. And I'm open to suggestions to my transportation board colleagues. I think we should select a cycle track option and a concept A through E option to be considered, and then have those sort of run through the proverbial process, the proverbial hopper, to see what the effect would be on these pedestrian sort of other treatments. So I guess what I'm suggesting we do is we can do this by a vote, or we can do this by acclamation, or we can just talk about it. Of the options A, B, C, D, and E, I think we should narrow them down. I didn't really hear anybody, well, I guess I heard one person, I didn't hear anybody say they were in love with option D. So I'm asking my transportation board colleagues, is there an objection to sort of striking option D?
No objection.
At this time. D.
Just D.
Okay, so that's D. Let's go through them all again real quick. So go up to A. 1 second, Nancy. We're just going to go through these real quick. So this is A. Okay. Flex posts. Yep. B, no flex posts. C, no flex post, but a buffer. D, flex post, but in 5 foot and 4.5 foot lanes. And then E is parking on the grass on the left there. Okay. So Nancy, I see your hand. Go ahead, please.
I would like to eliminate A. No parking.
Can we see A, please?
That was very game show of you, Brian.
All right. Nancy, do me a favor. Lower your hand. Does any board member object to eliminating? Oh, Len, go ahead.
I prefer A out of the lettered options.
You prefer A. Okay, so there's one for A. Okay. Option B.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
So A and D, so you suggested eliminating D and Nancy suggested eliminating A, if I have that right. So A and D, the difference is, can you go back to D?
Is there a slide that has all of these? I thought there was.
So
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Ah, thank you.
Makes too much sense.
Oh, I see. It has a.
D,
it
they're
does have a
4.5
parking.
foot and 5
Yeah,
foot
okay.
lanes with,
And I'm
with
just,
parking.
okay, so the only reason that there's no flex post on the northbound side is why on D? Is it because you want cars to be able to pull there if they have to?
So
It's because you can't put them with 5-foot bike lanes for the snow clearance.
But you
And
can
that
for-
width is taken up by the parking lane in option D.
Remember, this also has a bus route and it's a 10.5 foot lane. So putting a bollard on that shoulder line or a flex post on that shoulder line is really asking. I know we talked on Harvard Street about how professional our T drivers are, but you're really asking a lot of them.
But you
to
have,
not
but you have
shy
flex
away
posts-
from that.
But you have flex posts on one side. So, okay, I was just trying to understand what the difference is across these. So for A, so A, you're doing flex posts on both sides and it's like symmetric.
A, there's no parking.
Right. No
There's no
parking,
parking.
bike lanes are the same size and car lanes are the same size on both sides. D, you have one side parking and then you have a smaller protected bike lane, which means no snow removal there. And then you have a larger unprotected bike lane. Okay.
Mhm.
And
Should
then
we look
C-
at it in two pieces? Like Wallingfield to Route 9, because that
Oh
will
God,
involve
no.
the
Can
parking.
we just do
So,
one and can we just do one, please?
Yeah, we have to give our designers some guidelines, and one of them will be look at it in two pieces, but we have to give, we can't give them 12 things to look at in two pieces because that's 24 studies. We some of this down. So, all right, we're gonna have it, we're gonna have to vote on this, on each an individual option. Okay, unless Wendy, you have something again? Your hand is up again, or is that still up? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
it's the same, but I'll just voice my option, my preference here is definitely the cycle track. And then I think with this, I mean, if we were really trying to maintain parking, I think D is my preference out of these. I don't really understand E, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I don't understand E either.
E we can
Okay.
kick out.
So I think E is out. David Krupp. David, really? David, we're trying
No,
to.
no, come on.
We're trying to narrow this
haven't we
down,
had
David.
enough?
Help
Well,
me
it's
out.
just, you
Could
said
we
you
just
don't
stick with the
understand
board,
E.
please?
I was involved in the discussion
I
with
agree with
DPW.
Nancy. David shouldn't be talking right
Hold
now.
on. David, real
Brian,
quick. Just
I
2
really
seconds.
disagree with this.
2 seconds, David. Well, come on,
The
David.
reason for E is
No, you
to
closed
make sure-
public comment. This is
Point of
ridiculous.
order.
Well,
This
maybe
isn't,
maybe
Public
the staff
comment was
can speak to it.
closed.
okay, well, the
It's a-
staff,
No,
Dan, will you,
he's already spoken
Yeah,
twice.
Okay.
If I could talk,
David,
Brian,
sorry, you
just say
can't
what-
talk.
okay.
No, Dan, you can talk. David can't.
Yeah, so David, Peter Firth, David and I sat, and Peter kind of suggested E as a way to get parking. It's a little tricky because the car has to cross the bike lane, but it was a thought he had, and that's the genesis of where that one came from, to try and satisfy everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Transportation Board.
Let's just go through and vote on every one of them, Brian.
Who wants, okay, raise your hand if you
if I may.
want to advance option. Sorry? Raise your hand if you want to advance option A. I think that was you, Len. Okay.
And we're
so
voting
2
on
for
only
A.
one of these. We can select only one of these. Is that
No,
of
you
this
can
group?
vote on as
I
many
think
as
we
you
can
want.
select 1 or 2. Yeah, you can pick as many as you want. There's no.
Oh, yeah, you're gonna pick
Option
5.
B.
I'll vote on A also.
Anybody want B? So you're.
I would like to vote on
Well, you can't
A.
vote on all of them. You can't vote on all of them. You have
That's
to,
why I
you
asked.
have to not vote for one.
How about if I just give you my 3 overall?
No, we're gonna do this, we're doing this way. So we have 3 for A. How many for B? 2 for B. How many for C? 2 for C. Richard, you gonna vote for them all?
No, hold, sorry, my hand wasn't up. My hand was only up for A.
Yeah, me too.
So there's none for
So
B.
you have to- Then you have to do it again.
Okay, everybody put your hand down.
Just do a voice.
If you want to advance A, raise your hand. So I see Wendy, Len, and Richard. Okay. Okay. If you want to, okay, put your hands down. If you want to advance option B, raise your hands. Nobody wants B. You want to advance option C, raise your hands. One for C. Option D, raise your hands. I'll vote for D. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And option E. Lower your hands. Lower your hands. Anybody want to advance option E? Okay. So we're advancing A and D to the next round. Let's look at all
Wait
of
a
the
minute.
cycle track options.
Wait, you only had 3. Okay, all right, fine.
Well, yeah, one had 3, one had 4.
Yeah.
Dan, you had a question?
So
Dan
you
Martin?
have,
No?
this includes the cycle track though, right? So it's
We're gonna
really.
do that next. We're
Because
doing
there's
the cycle
multiple
track stuff
cycle
now.
tracks.
Right, so you're asking staff to do how
2
many?
non-cycle track and 1 or 2 cycle track.
Okay.
Okay, so there's 4 options for cycle tracks as I see it.
I don't
East
feel
side track.
strongly on any of these and would be happy with just about any. If that's helpful.
Okay. Not helpful.
I suggest the southbound side. I know there are parking concerns for the ball fields and such, but it makes the most sense for continuity.
What is it we're choosing here?
So would you prefer to have the track itself on the southbound side or the northbound side, or would also known as east and west? So the
Yeah,
west
I
side
don't
is the
think I
side
have
the
a
school, the ball
view.
field is on.
My only concern is that
Okay.
it should be opposite side as parking. I don't really understand the west, east, north, south.
Yeah, I
One side is
disagree.
where
It
the
should be on
school
the
is,
same
one
side as
side's not.
parking because it provides the ability for vehicles to turn and pause before they cross the path.
So can I just want to say about the cycle track, if it's okay. The other ones
Please.
have had treatments, right? Like this has been going on for a long time with the other designs. The cycle track, it seems like there's a lot of things that the staff needs to look at. It's a more complicated design and there's a lot of constraints based on signals, intersections, turns. So I feel like they need to go and sort of see what's feasible, like rather than us saying, well, we want it on this side, or we want it on this side, or we want these together. I feel like they need to put some time into figuring out what is actually feasible for a cycle track and then come back to us with options. I mean, for us to say right now, when it might be that it's our preferred design is completely unfeasible with turns when they start designing it, when they start trying to look at what is doable. Can they actually look at what can be done in this area first?
Well, I think a lot of that work has been done. If you look at this slide, you see there are pros and cons to both sides. And to do the level of analysis you're asking for, we need to narrow this down a little bit.
So are these, I mean, I don't want to open a can of worms here, but in some of the drawings, like you could see there's, the road has turn lanes, right? Left turn lane or right turn lane. We already know that a cycle track is feasible with that width as well. Like all of that's been looked at.
Yes. It's not going to be easy, but it's possible. So,
Okay.
Rob, can you scroll down to the two more down? Okay, so this is an option. East side parking, east side track. Next, Rob. West side track, east side parking. Next. And next. Okay. So Rob, go back up to the first one, please. I will say that my preference is for one down. My preference is for the cycle track to be on the west side because that's the side the school and the baseball. I am relatively agnostic as to where the parking goes, and that's sort of where I'm at.
I agree with you, Brian, on the side. I am very much in favor of having the parking next to the path because it provides what appears to be a 10-foot buffer between the two modes of transportation, which means if you were turning into a driveway or turning into a signalized intersection or a side street, you have the ability to pause and see someone. Let's say you were making a left across the two-way track. You have the ability to pause and look behind you, because your first concern obviously was that you weren't going to get hit by an oncoming car. And then if you're making a right, you have the ability to pause and look in front of you as well as behind you before you make that turn. So this particular slide would be my
Important
preference.
considerations. There are concerns from pedestrians on the other side being next to speeding motorists. But yes, there's always trade-offs.
I recognize that. And last time I checked, there's lots of trees out there in between the sidewalk and the roadway. And guardrail for a long distance too.
Good point. So west
Actual
side,
guardrail on a
and I'm
residential road.
perfectly fine with this one too, Jonathan. So
I'll vote
I
for
will
it.
I will row in behind Jonathan for this one.
Me too.
Sorry?
We're just.
I'm opposed
All right.
to it.
Okay. You want the parking on the other opposite from the
Yes.
cycle track, Nancy? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a preference for east side or west side?
Nope.
Doesn't sound like you do. Okay. Okay. Wendy, Richard?
I'm fairly agnostic with this. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah.
I would
right, so-
go with the Jonathan's first choice with the cycle track on the south side or the west side, and the parking on the east side. It would make pedestrian crossing the best. I do hear Jonathan's argument about the parking lane against the cycle track, but I think Kevin Johnson confirmed sanitation challenges with a 12-foot reach.
So how about this? What if we ask the folks to look at a west side track and alternate the side of the street the parking is on where it makes the most sense for all of the other variables?
I find it acceptable to leave the parking location to the judgment of the engineering staff.
Here. Okay. Okay,
Obviously, we're not worried
So it
about
sound-
parking
sorry,
from we're not worried about parking from where Warren Field to Cleveland Circle stretch. We're focusing in, if there's parking, it's involving from Warren Field to Route 9. That's where it currently is.
Okay.
Which
So-
also at
so
Dean
it sounds like
Road,
we're saying,
I mean, I assume that this has to end at Channing Road regardless, simply because you'd be affecting the operations of the Route 9 traffic signal.
I think what you
Right.
said, Jonathan, is part of the answer. And I think, Richard, you and he are saying the same thing. So
Yeah,
Look
leave
at
it,
the west
let's
side
leave it up to
track
the
and
engineering staff to do their
leave it up to
engineering
the
job.
engineers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Based on all of the available information.
Yes.
Okay, so we're asking them to advance options A and D and cycle track on the west side with parking left to the experts.
And I'll put
Yes.
a plug if it were feasible with Mass DOT for the scramble at Boylston Street. It's a terrible crossing there for pedestrians.
It is a terrible crossing.
I mean, I
And so
think,
they're
Wendy,
gonna
that
look
would
at
have to be a
those three
separate,
options,
separate activity.
Yeah, but
and that's the state.
Just
So we're
letting
gonna
staff
look at
know.
those three options and reflect what it might mean for potential pedestrian treatments. And so they'll come back with more concrete things for us to then do this all again on. Hooray! Len,
And I'm hoping the next time we meet to discuss this that we vote.
oh yeah, me too. No, we're voting the next time. I don't know how we're gonna do it. We're gonna have to get out to the neighborhood and talk to folks. But yeah, we gotta. We've been talking about this for 2 years. It's time to make a decision, even if that's a no decision. It's a decision.
Brian, if I mention one other area.
Yeah.
Is for engineering at Dean Road intersection, and what is the strong need for that right-hand turn vehicle lane? If we do decide whether it's lanes on either side or the cycle track.
All right, we're gonna move on to our next item, which is new business. Is there any new business? Hearing none, is there a motion to
Yeah,
adjourn?
hold on, Brian.
No.
I request that the next time we do this, it's a single item. I'm not doing Chestnut Hill Avenue after four agenda items again.
I second
Agreed.
that.
We will have a special
Or we
meeting
do it
just on
first.
Chestnut Hill.
I third that.
Okay. Is there a
That's
motion to
all. And
adjourn
you
now?
thought it was going to be something big.
I did. All right, without objection, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. See you in July.